All right, welcome everyone to the 2024 Drift Sponsorship Summit. The goal of today is to help both professional drifters as well as grassroots drifters understand the business of sponsorship, what brands want from sponsorship, what they seek from representation, why they sponsor, and then how you can get sponsored by them. We're going to cover a few things. We're going to cover why do brands sponsor, what do they want, how to activate and build your personal brand. We'll talk about networking and meeting new sponsors, as well as the difference between DEX proposals and proof of performance reports. There is a difference. You don't want to send the wrong report at the wrong time or the right time to the wrong person. Social media. If you're not winning races, if you don't have a lot of sponsors, you can still create value. And then we're going to hear from 5 companies in the last session, the sponsor speed dating session. That's always a fun one, of why they sponsor, what they look for, and how you can get sponsored by them. We're going to talk to Engine Ice, Boxo USA, Injuku Racing, Kendon. But first, before we get started, special thanks to Gary Reyes for encouraging me to do this. Gary is a drifter, and also he owns and is the founder of Sponsored Adrenaline. He's encouraged me for a while to do a drift summit because of the popularity of drifting. And it's an area that it's one of the fastest growing motorsports, but not one of the fastest growing in terms of sponsorship. So our goal today is to try to get more drifters sponsored. Without Gary, there probably would be no drift summit today. So thank you. We'll hear from him a little later in the session on personal branding and activations. And also thank you to Justin Windbigler, who introduced me to several of the panelists. I appreciate that. Another grassroots drifter who really was influential in helping me do this and encouraging, I should say. So while George is queuing up our first 2 panelists, I'm going to jump in real quick into Sponsorship 101. George, why don't you queue up Jim and Chris, and then I'm going to do a quick narrative. Sponsorship is a tactic of marketing, and companies market to increase sales. So sponsorship is naturally to increase sales. A lot of drivers today, they feel like the sponsorship is about logos and exposure. And, you sponsor me and I'll put a logo on my helmet, my hood, my car. That's not what most brands want nowadays. They want representation in the field at events and activities where they can't go. So if there's a race that a brand can't get to, that's why they would sponsor somebody to go to that event for them, to become an extension of their marketing arm. You can't market from an office or a desk. You can't market from inside 4 walls. In order to market, you have to be telling a story, looking customers in the eye, shaking hands, and being personal one-on-one. The best marketing is in the field. The problem is most companies can't get into the field at all the different events and be at all the different locations. So they have to sponsor ambassadors who can do that. Thus, that's why we call sponsorships and sponsored riders brand ambassadors. Brand ambassadors are the team in the field who represent a company and engage consumers, spectators, fans, customers on behalf of that company. And the best sponsorships are ones that tell stories. You can't really use the same application for all brands and all different types of companies because different companies have different needs. So some companies want sampling, some companies want visibility, new companies want exposure and they want their name out there. Some companies want product testing. Some companies want transfer of technology from aftermarket onto real cars, or street cars, I should say. Some companies seek distribution. Some want B2B opportunities. There's a lot of reasons why brands sponsor and a lot of reasons why companies get involved with sponsorships. Exposure is not one of the biggest, but exposure is the one that we're all used to. And we're going to learn today, why do brands get involved in drifting? A lot of brands want traffic to their stores or retail sites or websites because they want to generate sales. And some brands just want to be part of the fun. They want you to be top of mind. So when you're in the purchasing mode, if you're going to buy something like tires or insurance, you're thinking about them at that moment when you're making that decision. But ultimately, all companies want sales. That's what this is about. And since this is the Drift Sponsorship Summit, we're going to talk today about why brands sponsor drifting. And who better than to start with than the co-founder of Formula Drift, Jim Lau, co-founder, 3-time former champion Chris Forsberg. Let's pull both of them up. And Jim, I'm going to start with you since you're not only the general manager of PRI, but you help create FD. Formula Drift and drifting in general seems to be the fastest growing motorsport in the world today. Is that why brands are sponsoring it, or what is it that brands are looking for?
Hi everyone. Hey Alex, you guys hear me okay?
Yes,
All
we
right,
actually see and hear you. You're doing great.
yeah, I mean, I think there's it's a multi-pronged kind of answer to your question. Why do brands get involved in drifting? I think it goes across all sports and all genres. Every company has different goals, and really the $1 million question really is for the team or the series or the event or whoever it is that's seeking sponsorship to make that right connection. What is that value proposition? What is it that I can provide to that particular brand that can make that connection? If it's as you said, if it's about driving sales, if it's about building impressions or viewership of something, or if there's a particular campaign that they've got in front of them, they need to find the right partner that can be their ambassador, be the bridge to the audience, right? It's that kind of analogy where it's like, hey, you're growing up and your mom or your dad is kind of nagging you, telling you to do something, and it goes in one ear and out the other. But then when your coach is telling you to do the same thing, suddenly it's like, oh my gosh, epiphany! This is great. This is great advice. It's similar in that sense, right? Where a corporation starts telling you, the buyer, or a young person, like, hey, buy my stuff or use my products or whatever it is. That's different than one of you guys out there that looks the part, that speaks the part, that lives and breathes whatever that audience is, and that's the need, is to make that connection through a different voice, through a voice that's more authentic, that's more organic. So long answer to a seemingly simple question is like, yeah, companies want to sponsor drifting because there's a lot that can be offered, whether there are unique personalities and great spokespeople. Chris is on, and he can speak kind of more intimately about that. What is it that he has to offer brands that chose him? Sometimes it's about performance and results. Sometimes it's about what you're doing off the track. Sometimes it's simply about your personality and your character, and that fits the mold of that brand. So there's a lot of great things going for drifting. There's a unique audience that traditional racing just simply doesn't have, and there's a dynamic that drifting has that traditional racing simply doesn't have, and hasn't figured out how to authentically portray that, and that's where you're seeing the buildup of more and more brands and marketers understanding that, yeah, drifting and the audience that drifting serves is quite unique and quite elusive compared to other things that they're doing. So I'll stop there for now.
No, I like that. That's great. And since you mentioned Chris, let's go over to Chris. Chris, you've been racing for, I think, 24 years, 18 in FD. You've been there since the very beginning, 3-time champion. You got a massive sponsorship with Nissan. What is it that Nissan's looking for out of sponsoring drifting? And what do you do for them on their behalf?
Well, yes, no, thank you for that. We've been racing in Formula Drift since day one, since 2004. So coming in our 21st season this year. So, and nice. Through the years, there's been multiple different ways to give back to our partnerships. And I think that's one of the reasons why we've been successful over the years, is being able to flow with the changing patterns of marketing. Right. When we first got started back in 2004, it was mainly just about results, right? And just being there on site, putting on a show. Live stream didn't exist. YouTube didn't even exist. Like all these things, it was just like, getting some magazine articles and some photos. And so it was all about, logos on the cars and things like that. And that's obviously changed dramatically since then. And we've been able to, be at the forefront of that. We were doing our own DVDs back then, kind of always knowing that we had to give more, right? And so I think that's the biggest thing that most drivers tend to not focus on, is they get too caught up in, well, Formula Drift is the end all be all. It's like, I'm here, like, where are the partners? It's like, no, like that's a platform for you to grow from and do more outside of the actual event. There's just too much going on now, especially with just all the different forms of social media, video content creation, how-to videos, interacting with fans, and being able to connect with them. And so every driver has a different way to connect. Some drivers, they focus on having like a flashy car, and like people kind of like gravitate towards that, or it's a certain model car. Other drivers are really focused on how-tos, right? Or some go to the local grassroots events. Some just do like their own unique content creation. Like everybody has a different type of avenue on how they excel their program. And what we have learned with Nissan is we're always trying to help with product development, product testing, and it really started in an authentic way back in 2003 when the 350Z came back to the market. Well, I should say the Z came back to the market as the 350, and I went out and purchased that car, put a down payment on it, and was able to, at that time, looking back now, what I realized I was doing was I was investing in myself, right? I put a down payment on a car that I, could barely afford, but I was signing in for the long haul, right? And so I was making payments towards this car, but knowing that having a platform that stood out and with a brand that was, pretty universally known as like a drifting type brand, Nissan, right? Everybody had their 240s and whatnot, but it was like, how do we elevate above that? And so you can't expect a brand to invest into you if you're not going to invest into yourself. And so that was like my first lesson in marketing, if you will. And from there, I was able to help with product development for not only with Nissan, and we were doing engine swaps, and we were the first V8 conversion in Formula Drift into a car that didn't come with one. And so we're always just trying to like push the envelope and staying true to a brand, and the loyalty has shown just how important that is, right? Brand loyalty, in my opinion. All of our partnerships go anywhere from most of ours are over 10 years, right? Up to 22 years with Nissan now, and we're 16, 17 years with NOS energy drink. And so to me, it's like brand loyalty, growing that relationship, and going through the ebb and flows of how the market goes. Sometimes budgets come and there'll be an influx. Sometimes there's a decrease. But in my opinion, like I've never been the type to just jump ship and just try and find a next paycheck. It's like, no, it's a relationship. You work with them, and then that's how you grow with that brand, and you come to realize what they're looking for, right? And so with Nissan, it's always been, like I said, these like developing of parts and doing some R&D with them, and pushing the limits of what can be done with their vehicles and their engines, outside of what they can do, since they're kind of caught behind the red tape of what they can do, like legally, and being able to do on the street, we're able to do on the track. And so that's led us all the way to today, where we now have a Forsberg edition Nissan Frontier coming out in the fall. And so that's just
cool. Is that? That's cool.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting for us. And that all came from product development with the off-road racing Frontier that we built for Nismo Off-Road, and took down to NORA 500 and won the production class. And so one of those things where we've been drifting with them for so long, but it's like we understand that one of their highest selling vehicles is the Frontier. So it's like, okay, what can we do with that, right? The Z is a very popular, fun car, but it doesn't check all the boxes for paying the bills and keeping the lights on at Nissan, right? That's their one of their flagship cars. So that's why we built the Altima, right? So it was the world's first CAD designed drift car. It's 4 seats, almost 2,000 horsepower, and that car is built to showcase that Nissan is a cool, fun brand. Yes, it's a rear-wheel drive drift car, and Altimas do not come that way, but it is brand recognition, right? And so once again, adapting to the Altima is one of their highest grossing cars, And so like, what can we do with that? And so we're always pushing the limit and the envelope of, what is this brand focused on, and what is their, marketing pushing towards, and what can we do with those products?
And that carries over to other brands as well, because what you're talking about is transfer of technology. You're testing the car track, which then become part of the original production, the OEM line, which consumers end up buying. But when you and I were speaking a while back, you had mentioned other sponsors were sponsoring you because they want to also make parts for the new models of Nissans. So that's another interesting way of looking for sponsors, is to find those brands that want to work with your existing sponsors, the B2B aspect. Can you go over that for a second?
Yeah, sure. And for me, it was that way because, like I said, I bought into that 350Z back in 2003 when it first hit the market. So I had one of the only ones in Southern California that was, a track ready car that people could, install parts on, we could take out to the track and go testing with. But now there are so many aftermarket companies that are always, trying to develop a new part, a new angle kit, a new coilover kit. It doesn't just have to be a brand new model, right? That does help, obviously, because as a new vehicle model comes out, like whether it's a Toyota or BMW or Ford or whatever, brands are going to kind of gravitate towards that to try and be first to market. However, there are still going to be multiple different brands that are trying to develop, from old parts to R&D, or make new parts and just expand their product line, right? And so one of the things that we've always learned is it's not just about, as one of my friends says, nothing is free, right? When it's like, oh, I need free parts, I want free parts. It's like, no, these parts are complementary, right? And that's because you're giving them a service. And so the best way to begin, performing a service for a brand, don't just, show up and say, hey, I'll put your parts on, put a sticker on the side. It's like, let me help you develop these parts, and what can we do? What can we give back to you as a brand? As you're starting small, right? With like product partnership is usually the first way into the door of a partnership.
For sure.
How can we help you elevate your brand, not just by advertising it, but by research and development?
And you're right. There's no such thing as a free lunch. There's always a catch, for everything that you do. Jim, I'm going to go to you real quick. When you started Formula Drift, were you looking at the endemic brands who were looking to create parts and improve functionality through drifting? Or were you looking for those companies that wanted to be part of an entertainment venue to get visibility to the eyeballs? Or was it a combination?
I think it's a combination. I think it really goes back to a little bit of what Chris was saying. Like, if are you walking in the door saying, this is what I have for you, or are you walking into the conversation asking, what is it that you need, that you want? And then thinking about or crafting or proposing, how can I serve or work with that? How can I partner with that brand and that company to best meet what it is that they want? Because otherwise you're like, two ships sailing in the night. You're asking for something, your expectations are different. They may want big logos and you're saying, I want to develop your part. Or they may want you to help R&D, but you're offering big logos on your car. Like you're kind of having, it's a relational thing, like sponsorship and partnership. That's why a lot of times you'll hear, Chris, you hear, the guys at Formula D and others, like you start using more of the word partnership, because it's a two-way relationship. You're just really taking the time, to understand what is it that a brand wants, and even more so. And I know there's other guests that are going to be on later. Is that as a decision maker for those brands, there's like the brand, meaning the company, right? What is it that the company wants? And then there's a person that works for that company. That person may also be, there's a little particular, like, everybody's human, right? So that you got to understand those decision makers as well. What is it that's going to make that person tick? And what is it that you have to offer, or that the ideas that you can come up with to kind of pair that individual's personality? What is it that's really attractive to them? And what is it that's really attractive to the company? And being able to to understand that. And I think too many times, you know, athletes, teams, drivers, whatever, walk in the door saying, hey, we're the best. Hey, you know, whatever, we're Formula D. We've got X million followers on Instagram. Give us money. Well, that doesn't really do much if you're really not understanding what is it that you know, that company wants at the end of the day.
Valid point, because a company, we talk a lot about personalities and branding and attitudes, and in the next session we're actually going to talk about personal branding and attitudes, and how to attach that to a sponsor, because some sponsors want certain attitudes. You know, Red Bull and Monster have two very different personalities that they portray through their brand ambassadors. Let's speak for a second to the grassroots drifters on the call. There's a lot of regional series out there. You introduced me to at least 5 of them, Jim, so thank you for that. But the pros at the pro level, they're obviously representing at more professional, televised, bigger events. Let's speak for a second to the grassroots drifters on the call who might not have, you're going to events that have television. Maybe the best visibility has to do with all the drivers' social media. How do local grassroots drifters attract sponsors? And how do they attach their personalities, if it's even relevant, to the series that they're with in order to draw in sponsors?
Yeah, I think, you know, Chris is definitely more relatable here. I think it's just scalable, right? It's yes, you're not Chris Forsberg, and your program isn't as hefty, and your followers, etc., your footprint isn't as much, but that doesn't mean that it can't be scalable, right? It's just it's what you have. It still comes down to what do you have to offer, and what is it that the company wants from you? Because whether the company's big or small or regional, or your, you know, neighborhood, this or that, there's something that they want, and there's something that actually you, the grassroots driver, maybe can deliver that you know, a Chris Forsberg cannot, because you're regionally based, you're there locally, and there's something about that connection to that local audience or that regional audience that someone nationally, internationally just can't offer, right? James Dean is not in the US or in the Southeast 360 days a year, or even half a year. So what can a driver, a team like that offer? They can't offer the intimacy that you have. So again, it's really about using the tools that you have and really understanding your footprint and the needs of a company that you're trying to go after.
I agree with you on the starting local part. Most marketing always does start local, then it expands regional, and regional often goes national, which then can go global. And that it really includes publicity as well. But for grassroots drifting, the local sponsorships always do seem to make the most sense. Chris, when you got started, you know, 2 decades ago, did you jump right in for the national sponsors, or were you looking at local sponsorships? How did you acquire Nissan and NOS?
Well, yeah, we didn't, or I didn't just go, you know, right after like national sponsorship, right? It was, a lot of it back then was word of mouth, right? Like I said, internet was barely taken off. It was MySpace. There was no Facebook. There was no Instagram, right? And so it was a lot of word of mouth and where you were. So it was a little different, like I said, from then to now on how you connect with people. You know, and you know, we're just grinding at it for so long, just doing whatever we had to do to make it to the events, because that was how you met people, right? Face to face. And so it was certainly not easy. You know, I lived in a garage 2 different times in my early years of the career, sacrificing, you know, being able to pay rent for being able to pay for car parts and make it to events. And so, you know, that level of dedication, not that that's like in a proposal, but basically you do whatever you have to do to make it to the event, right? And you know, if that is your dream and your passion and what you want your career to be, you know, you have to be willing to, you know, go the distance.
Nice.
And
Nice.
so, you know, but coming into now, just like Jim said, you know, one of the biggest things that we've learned with when we're speaking to our partnerships, you know, now versus then is, you know, looking at it as like, what can we do for you? And, you know, Jim said it very well, where it's not about walking into a conversation saying like, you know, this is what I want. It's, you know, what can we do for you? Like, yes, you have a resume, right? Of course. but it's still, what is that brand looking for? You know, are they looking for on-site appearances where, like you said, someone that's regional can help with that? Are they looking for R&D work? Are they looking for online presence? You know, there's all different ways that you can help with a partnership. There's also means of what we are now doing with a lot of our larger partners, and with Nissan especially, we're starting to do a lot of commercial work, not just content, but you know, larger scale production work, which is great. You know, we have our own in-house media team, and you know, that has helped us to expand to another level with our program and our partnerships, where it's not just, you know, like running a quick selfie video and posting it up, you know, for fun. It is, you know, we are now like a full-scale marketing program. And so it's, once again, you know, that doesn't really go for every partnership that we have, but it is obviously scalable, right? In which, you know, we always, yeah,
Sorry.
we're always, no, you're fine. Yeah, we're always looking for, you know, what does the partnership need? What does this brand want? And how can we help fulfill those goals?
Yeah, and the large scale commercial work is great because drifting is a lot about content and cool, compelling content, because it skews to a younger demographic. One of the questions that someone asked me is how, and we just have a couple minutes left, so literally 2 minutes, maybe a minute each. How do smaller teams create value for larger brands? Is that something that you have some good advice for? That was a question that was asked by one of the members.
Yeah, I mean, that's difficult to answer, but the best thing I can say is, you know, once again, you got to be willing to go the distance, and you got to understand what your positioning is, and you can't just, you know, just because you got your foot in the door, you can't shoot for the moon, right? You got to, you know, grow that relationship. Like I said, all of our partnerships are long term. As you can probably tell, we're not switching, you know, year to year to, you know, whoever's coming along. It's about that longevity, and that's how you are able to, you know, get to a position where these brands trust you to be able to do, you know, these larger scale productions with them, and, you know, going to events and representing them. And it's, you're not having to give, you know, constant feedback and constantly having to prove yourself, if you will. So I mean, if you're looking to go on 50 first dates, I mean, go for it, but you know, it is obviously better to, you know, grow that relationship, that partnership, as we continue to call it, and not focus on it as a sponsorship and what can I get. It's what can I give you as well.
That's cool. That makes sense. And are you going to be in Long Beach next month? I'll be there. So I'll see you there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know it. We'll be there.
Right on. Well, thank you, Chris. Thanks for joining this. And then Jim, real quick, last words of advice. I know you got to run, but what last words of advice do you have for grassroots drifters on the call seeking sponsorship?
Yeah, I'd say two parts, and yes, it's definitely. I think you know, these type of things it definitely sounds, you know, we're not trying to make it. It's a lot harder than it is, right? It's easier said than done. But really, it's the persistence. I mean, there's two parts. I kind of leave this segment with is like, you know, one, don't shortchange yourself just because you're only driving in North Carolina or whatever it is. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't still show up with, you know, the best presentation possible, that you shouldn't go into a meeting as if you were a Chris Forsberg walking into a meeting asking for sponsorship, whether it's for you know, $500 of parts or, you know, $5,000 in cash. It's just don't shortchange your value to the company, and just kind of come with a little bit of that confidence. And then, yeah, really, I go back to just kind of understanding, like, if you look at, you know, I keep deferring to Chris because I see it right here on screen. It's like, you know, there's brands that are with Chris because of, you know, their relationship and Chris's style and what he portrays. And there's those that are there because he's you know, he's a consistent and winning driver. So there's no kind of one answer. Brands want different things. There's, you know, other pro drivers that are on. I think, you know, Jeff Jones, I think I saw was on. I mean, there's different value that you can offer. So really understand what you're good at, understand how you set yourself apart, and again, don't shortchange yourself when you're going to, you know, build a relationship, not ask for sponsors, but build a relationship so that you can find partners.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jim. Thank you for taking the time on this Wednesday afternoon. I do appreciate it. And I know you have to go. So that was a perfect segue on personal branding. Speaking about personalities, your attitudes and character. Let's head over to our next session, which is personal branding and activation. And we have, who I'd mentioned earlier, Gary Reyes, who's helped me put the summit together, as well as Chris Sempic, who's the founder of Kansai Wheels. How cool is that? Also the chief engineer. He develops those wheels. Talk about personal branding. Gary, I'll start with you since you helped me put on the summit. How is drifting different from traditional motorsports? I know it has a younger demographic. It's more attitude based, not as much television, but it's also what I believe the fastest growing motorsport in the United States. So when it comes to sponsorships, how is it different from traditional motorsports?
I think a loaded question in a sense, but I will say with drifting, I mean, it's been very content based and it produces a lot of great content just naturally, right? Loud engines, generally tire smoke, the look, the feel. So I think in that sense, it sets itself apart all from the other motorsports alone. But I would also say that when it comes to drifting, that it's still very young. And that I think in a sense sets it apart too. Just the history of drifting in the US isn't as long as, you know, drag racing or some of these others that have been around since very early on. I think Formula Drift celebrated what 25 years last year, I think it was. So it's not compared to other motorsports, it's not as aged in that regard.
Right on. And then Chris, how many teams does Kansai support in drifting and why do you sponsor?
So I don't have a number off the top of my head about how many teams we sponsor, but in Formula Drift, I say we sponsor a good amount of pro spec drivers and just 2 pro drivers, but we sponsor a lot more grassroots drivers. And the value that they bring to us is definitely in the content and how their personal brands that they're building can complement the brand that we are trying to build, because brands with the power of the internet are having a lot of fun being smaller and not bigger. And when you have smaller brands and not such, you know, I say large brands like Coca-Cola and Nike, like those brands will always be there. But I think with the age of the internet, you'll see a lot of fun new smaller brands come out, and those brands have personality that they're trying to cultivate. And I think it really complements the drift industry and the drifters also have their own sense of personal style that they're bringing to the sport, and how can those complement each other as far as what brands are trying to build and what drivers are trying to build for themselves as their own self-image.
So with Kansai specifically, what type of image are you looking for? Are you looking for the good guy or the renegade?
We like to consider ourselves a little more edgy, a little more on the renegade side. We like, you know, that people that thrash on our products, we like to say, you know, it's okay to hurt our wheels. It's fine. They're made for that. Beat them up. We're young. We're only 6 years old. We really enjoy content and interesting visuals. So the approach that we take is definitely more individualistic, more stylized than, you know, some of the larger companies that are looking for more of a polished image. We enjoy the space that we're in where it can be a little more individualistic. And so that's the brand we're trying to be too. We love the people that we work with that are pushing their self-imagery and their self-content to be, you know, out there. And we look for that as far as complementing our brand and our marketing efforts.
Excellent. So you're looking for somebody who's just legitimate and real, that matches your personality, the brand's personality, then that's somebody who would be considered for sponsorship. Cool.
Yeah.
Gary, I'll go to you then. When it comes to personal branding, what advice do you have for drivers trying to create a personal brand? You know, I'm just starting out. I'm a new drifter. I don't know what my personal brand is. I don't even know what it means. How do I go about developing my personal brand?
So I think this is a great conversation for grassroots drifting, because I think with so many grassroots drivers, this is the question: is like, what's the starting point, right? And I think this is it. It's super easy to do a personal assessment of your brand. I mean, what does your digital footprint say about you, right? So go through your social media and take a look at the content that you're posting and the quality of the content that you're posting. Because remember, social media goes both ways. While you can look for brands on social media, if you approach brands, they can look you up. They can see what you do, right? So it's
Yeah.
very important that you are conscious of your image online. And the best thing is when it comes to your personal brand, there's no wrong answer because different brands want different things, right? I think what all brands do like is authenticity. They want you to be authentic. They want you to be yourself because obviously that's what's going to shine through when you're presenting their product, right? So I think as a great starting point is that assessment piece for sure.
Like they say, you are what they Google. Chris, do you ever do that? Do you ever go out and Google the drivers who are approaching you to see who
Every
they are,
time.
what they're all about?
Yeah. Every time.
Nice.
And which is good because everyone is trying to put their own little story out there, their own profile, and they grow their own following. So like Gary said, there is no wrong answer. Like you put out whatever you want. You know, if a brand sees that and doesn't fit, that's fine. And on the same side of that, we're not going to seek someone out and make them do something that they don't already do or they're not comfortable with. You know, like if we approach someone and then we say, hey, we really want you to say you love our stuff, and we haven't even set them the wheels yet. You know, it's like we're not going to ask people to do that. Like it's
Cool.
we don't want to work that way. We'd rather have you be within your comfort for what you're willing to offer to a sponsor too, because if a driver needs to have their own boundaries as well, you know, because whatever you put out there is what you attract. And if you're not putting out product testimonials and stuff like that, we're not going to go to the lengths to ask you to do something that you're not already doing. So whatever you put out, we're going to seek to use you for, you know, and we're not going to make you do something that doesn't fit our brand or complement the brand that, you know, you're building for yourself.
So let's say you find a driver that has a complementary brand, someone whose personality seems to match Kanzai quite well. Like, oh, this is good. I like this person. I like this driver. You told me once that person, it's important that they be realistic. But what would that
Sure.
relationship look like? What does a sponsorship look like exactly? Is it all monetary? Is it part product, part money? Is it marketing? Is it a combination of the three? Do you do title sponsorships or not? What does a sponsorship look like?
Sure. Yeah. Well, we have lots of different packages, and mostly it's product based or partial discount based. I'd say for the majority of it, a lot can go really, really well with those type of things. But for people that have a higher, you know, profile, or they're already very involved with current partners that have a certain asking price and have a equity built for themselves that is, you know, visible and communicatable through a few meetings and phone calls. Like, yeah, there's always a monetary component that can happen to complement someone's program that's really like well established. But we've seen a lot of luck with just product and partial discounts, which is really great. And one thing we just started implementing this year is the sponsorship tier packages, where we, to help the communication process on in our early conversations, is, hey, here's the menu. We have a gold package. We have a bronze package. We have a silver package. Where do you think you fit in? Because each one of these has different deliverables. And if you don't think you can do everything that gold requires, maybe we start you off on the bronze package, you know, a lot less strings attached. We don't need to talk every day, every week, every 6 months, but, you know, here's some simple things that just start, here's the discount value that's associated with that. You tell us what you're looking to do. And we think that's taken a lot of the awkwardness out of the, you know, Mexican standoff that is, who do you know, what can you do? What can I do? It's like, here's the menu, order off the menu. If you don't want the Wagyu ribeye, don't order it. You know, if you just want the fries, let's start there. I'd rather start small, but I wanted to share that on this call today because I think it's really important that the communication early on for expectations is simplified, because a lot gets weird early on. So we were always racking our brain, how can we simplify this? And the tiered packages is kind of what we came up with recently.
I like that tiered packages because it allows someone to sort of dip their toes in and see if they're a good fit, if they can be a brand ambassador to the brand itself, if there's a culture fit. Culture, I think, is very important, and that's part of this conversation. Gary, I'll go back to you. You were saying in drifting that drifters actually have to create their own buzz because there's not a lot of media behind the grassroots series, at least. You said
Yes.
just go out and hire a photographer. There's usually photographers or videographers at the events. What are some ways that drifters can create a buzz and start to develop and project their personality in the media?
So I think Chris Forsberg said it when he said invest in yourself. I think that's a good start, right? I mean, before a brand's willing to invest in you, you have to invest in you. And if we're going back to even the content that's reviewable and viewable by brands, as grassroots drifters, the majority of drift organizations have on-staff media, or they publish the media list before events, which are for hire. And I think that's a great start, right? You can pay, I mean, it's not extremely expensive, but you can pay for coverage at events. And that's the media that you should be posting and the content that you should be using, which later on you talk about decks and whatnot. But some of those high quality pictures, those videos are what you need to help set you apart from the next guy in that regard.
You had mentioned in the past that there's different programs. You told me that there's a racers program versus a contingency program. Like, let's talk about that for a split second, and while you're gathering your thoughts. It kind of goes in line with what Chris was just saying about the different tiers, the gold, bronze, silver. But a contingency obviously is sort of a discount on parts, and hopefully you get a podium, so you get a little extra money. How do the racers programs work in grassroots drifting? And then at least for a driver wanting to create more value for sponsors, how does that work?
So every brand has their own or a different type of program when it comes to that. So I don't want to speak on behalf of the different brands. But I would say that when it comes to programs, that there is a great entry into sponsorships through these programs, right? Like even if they are a coupon code or as Chris was saying, hey, it's a bronze, right? Or in their case, right, a bronze, a gold. That could be the entry to the long-term relationships that Chris Forsberg was talking about, right? So don't be afraid to start with a brand that suits your style, that suits you as the starting point, right? And then over delivering for that brand to grow the relationship so they do want to do more with you, right? And I think that's great for grassroots drivers because oftentimes the question that we ask is like, how do I add value? Oh, what could I actually do for them? They have more followers than I do on Instagram or on social media. Like these are all the insecurities you have when you go to approach brands. And I think in reality, you need to start somewhere because you need to start building the relationship. As Jim said, there's the brand and then there's the decision maker who's the personality. So you need to meet the person and grow the relationship with the person by working, by showing them that you can do what you say you can do. And then I think through that, you can evolve that relationship to more than just a bronze or a coupon code or just that contingency program, depending on the brand.
And we're actually going to go into that in the decks and proposals session because you create a deck for a person, but you create a proposal for a business. And we will go into more detail on that in a minute. Chris, I'm going to go back to you since Gary was just mentioning social media. How important is a large social following to you, or is that just an added bonus?
I'd say just an added bonus. It's always cool that people have built that for themselves and have that reach, but it's not always the magic answer at the end of the day. There's a lot of really hardworking drivers that are humping it every weekend that don't have the biggest following, but they're living the brand. They're in the trenches, like literally Saturday and Sunday just completely burnt on the track, and that's great. And we need those kind of drivers too, because there's a lot more than just tooting your horn on the internet. There's product feedback. There's how you're acting out there as a brand representative. There's a lot more that goes into it than just your online presence, and we value that too. So I don't want anyone to think, oh man, I'm not a TikTok star, I can't approach this brand. And that's not always the case. You know, we love people that are really passionate about weekend warrioring and working that 9 to 5 and still, you know, turning laps at the track. It's really, really cool. And I think a lot of us that don't work in the industry kind of started that way too. It's like, you got to have that split between both lives. And when you're doing that, you don't always have the time to build a giant following. That's a job in itself. So I think it shouldn't be overlooked that, you know, a big following equals big value, because there's a lot of value in people with less of a following that are really true to what they do.
I've personally found that small groups of like-minded community members are more effective in at least promoting something, in my case, summits, than large organizations with tens of thousands of members.
Sure.
I've had affiliates that have maybe 200 followers or friends that they're connected to redeem more promo codes than organizations with 40, 50,000 members. So because they're like-minded and they're part of that community. Chris, I'm going to stay with you for a second, because I know you probably get asked about entitlements all the time. Everybody wants to be the title brand, wants you to be the title brand on their car.
Sure, yeah.
Do you do entitlements? And if not, why not?
No, we don't. We never have. It sounds really cool. We would love to have the creative capacity to completely brand someone's vehicle, but that's a lot taller order, you know, as far as content and really like a lot of curated deliverables. And we, you know, honestly, you're going to see the wheels no matter what, is what I always say. So, and that, you know, people seek out companies like Wheels just on their image and their wheel designs alone. So we kind of benefit from like that over maybe a cam or a piston company or a shock company. They don't have that visual draw. But also, you know, I'd rather sponsor 10 smaller teams and individuals than put all my eggs into one big pro that needs that title. Or even there's grassroots guys that want title, and I'm like, hey man, that sounds really cool, but it comes with a lot more, you know, responsibilities and deliverables. I don't think you want to bog your program with me bugging you for, you know, a bunch of stuff that you probably don't even have the capacity for. So let's be realistic and, you know, keep it, you know, a lot less than, you know, title. So maybe associate or something lesser, or maybe like a cool like hybrid package we come up with. But no titles on our side, and we're gonna keep it that way because we never had a need to, and I don't mind saying that.
Now, since you're a wheel company, it seems obvious that you might also work with tire companies. If that's the case, how do you do that? How do those partnerships or sponsorships work? If you're sponsoring a driver that a tire brand also sponsors, do you guys work together to cross market?
Sometimes, not always. We should probably do a little bit more with that this upcoming year. But yeah, we've been sponsoring, like Odie was a, you know, really great example when he was a Falcon. Really cool kind of cross-pollination of marketing. Like whenever Falcon, of course, would do a big campaign, we would kind of ride the coattails of that. Always cool to see. But I think a little, you know, inside information is like, no, we don't always work hand in hand with the tire companies, because people have their own marketing initiatives and everyone has their own budgets, and to come together on something really collaborative might be a little bit more than each brand can bite off and chew. If it happens, it happens. Great. Like we've had some cool organic stuff happen with Kenda, which we're really proud of. And we've, you know, had Kenda tires on our boost cars at Formula Drift, and it's really worked out kind of cool that way. But no, we never really seeked out, you know, partnerships with the tire company, because everyone's kind of already doing their own thing, unless it was like a major product launch or something with like a lot of budget behind it. No, I can't say we worked with any tire companies like hand in hand, but it'd be cool, you know, in the future. We're definitely open to it.
Okay, cool. And we'll actually have Ed from Kenda on shortly at the sponsor speed dating session. We'll hear what Kenda looks for.
Ed is incredible. Ed is truly an asset.
Good to hear that. So Gary, we're talking about personal branding in this session. And personal branding is important because it allows the series to grow. If the drivers in a series become personalities, What's a good way to grow a fan base, and what's a good way for drivers to help their series grow? Presumably, if the series grow, then all the drivers in the series will also grow.
I think there's a couple different ways to do that, but for one, it's consistency, and especially in social media and posting. Consistency is the key, and I'm sure Megan could answer or could give more tidbits on that than I could. But I think that's a great starting point. But I do want to touch on one thing that Chris and I spoke about, and I see it being mentioned in the comments when it comes to deliverables, right? As grassroots drivers, oftentimes we may become eager, try to get a sponsorship in conversation, and you start trying to agree to every deliverable. Oh yeah, I can do this. Oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah. Yeah. Chris, what was that? That's a red flag, right?
Yeah. Don't do everything. It's okay to say no. Like, don't,
Yeah.
I talked to a driver the other day. Like, yeah, I'll do anything you need. I'll do anything. And it's like, no, whoa, we don't. That's just too open-ended. I'd rather you say, hey man, I don't really have a YouTube channel. It's not really popping off for me. So I'm not gonna, don't go down, don't dig yourself in a hole on saying, I'll do anything just to get product. Like, no, don't humble yourself up, man. Don't go down that road. Just know who you're about and know your boundaries and your capabilities and speak to that. And if you're new and just starting out, like really, as I under promise, over deliver. That's it. But yeah, totally, Gary.
And one more point on personal branding that Chris and I were speaking about is how do you handle adversity when it comes to your sponsor or the product that your sponsor is providing, right? So let's say if things do go wrong with the product, how you handle that says a lot about what that brand will do with you next, and what other brands may want to do or not do with you based on your reaction. And I mean, Chris, I think you can comment on that also.
Yeah. I that we were kind of talking about in our earlier conversation about activation and like what you're like on the scene. And I think it's important, no matter what component it is, they can all fail. We're doing a sport that is really pushing all the components to its limit, and things are going to happen, whether in your control or out of your control. And when a part fails, I don't care if it's a wheel or your seatbelt or your steering wheel, as a sponsored driver, how you act when that happens is part of the sponsorship. Don't start cussing, your part because it broke. Maybe it was your fault, maybe it wasn't. But everyone in the pits will see that, or on grid will see that. And, if it's a wheel, if you debeat it and you start cussing, like, you got to think like an endorsed athlete would think. And it's not hard, but I think a lot of people are, not so formally trained in that, but it's just common sense that, you should respect the company that's working with you and not just throw them under the bus when something goes wrong. You say, hey, yeah, man, I pushed it a little bit on the tire pressure on that. I shouldn't have done 11 PSI. I was going too hard, and you can either just be realistic about it, but don't cuss out a brand you're working with just because the part failed. And maybe you lost the race. Maybe you lost the whole weekend because of that part. Maybe it was the company's fault. Then just don't say anything. Like, yeah, we tossed it this weekend. Oh well. But especially online in the comments too. It in real life and in the comments. If you break a wheel or something happens, we don't want to see you saying, yeah, but they were free. They're free. It's okay. No, we don't. Nothing's free. It's a trade. It's an agreement. But just be respectful of when stuff goes wrong.
And that applies.
Sure. And that's why we call them brand ambassadors. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, that's 100%.
That was the point I was actually going to make, is that even at the grassroots level, you're a brand ambassador for all the stickers on your car, right? And all the parts that are on those stickers that are on your car. So even if the event only has 100 people on it, if you're running up and down the pits talking junk about whatever part it is, that's going to resonate with people. And your job is actually the opposite when you're sponsored at any capacity or representing any brand at any capacity is to provide that positive outlook, help them. You're trying to help them make more sales or get exposure or get whatever it is. And shedding a negative light does the complete opposite of that. So just
don't do it.
Something about branding.
The brand can find out. Word travel. It's a small scene, the word gets back, and people get recorded on cell phones, and it happens. But and comments get screenshotted. So don't think it's just under the radar. If something goes wrong, just reach out to the brand and say, hey, I dusted a wheel this weekend. I don't know what happened, but I went off track. It blew up. Maybe you guys should look into it, and just open that dialogue. Talk about it. Tell us, or tell the company that's sponsoring you before you start. Just running around. Emotions are high. We get it, but when you are receiving product in exchange for services, you are technically, a very small portion of you as an employee or an arm of that company. So you need to think of yourself as that way when their name is literally on your vehicle, suit, trailer, helmet, whatever.
And it only takes one person in the audience to record you, upload you, post it on social media, share that, and go viral with it. You don't have to have a large following to create a big impact, but whether positive or negative, if you're at an event. So we only have a couple of minutes left. Let's do 1 minute each. Last words of advice to drifters on the call seeking sponsorship. Let's go. Chris, since you're on, or actually since Gary's on the screen, Gary, you go first. Last words of advice.
Last words of advice would be, don't be afraid to reach out. I think is my words of advice. One, come correct. So as this session goes on, you're going to learn a lot. Make sure you approach the companies the right way, and make sure you do your research. Learn the companies that you seek. It's been said by everybody here so far that has spoken about brand alignment, approaching brands that fit your personality, fit your personal brand. So I would say do your research, find the brands that actually resonate with you and that you could represent and do justice for.
Amen to that. Chris, last words of advice.
I'm going to piggyback off of that, and you should know who you are. Know what you're trying to build. Know the brand that you are yourself personally and the brand you put into your motorsport. But before you, like Gary said, research the companies that you're looking out for, but know who you are. And don't just reach out to companies because you heard they were giving out stuff and you wanted to grab that stuff. It's not about that. It's literally, hey, I'm not into Adidas stuff. I don't live that lifestyle. I'm a Nike person. I like Nike. Know who you are. All these brands are in your life already. You already are making decisions and curating yourself. So just know who you are when it comes to your motorsport. I think that'll really help how you approach sponsors, the conversations, and where you go with the branding of your wrap and your merch and even your media. You got to think of yourself as your own little company, and just cool companies know who they are, and you should know who you are too, and not just, make it up.
I like that. I think that's a very valid point. Know your personal brand, honestly. So thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that. We're going to head over now. Speaking of knowing who you are, knowing who you're going to meet and trying to meet people, we're going to speak next on networking and meeting new sponsors. So in this session, we have Alex Licklider, who's a, I think, 4-year Formula Drift racer, driver. Amanda Sorensen, who I met a couple of weeks ago at Nitrocross out in Vegas. She's not only runs Nitrocross, she drifts and she runs off-road. And then also Andre Jackson, who has been with Toyota, I want to say 25 years. I've worked with him about 15 of those years. He was heavily involved in the drift program.
You too, brother. 32.
Networking. Since when? Since
32
when, Andre?
years.
32 years. Holy moly. I didn't realize it's been that long. So I was thinking 20. I don't know why I thought that.
I'm probably the oldest guy on this phone call.
I don't think so, but I'm going to start with one of the young ones. So let's go to Alex real quick. Alex, you approached me at PRI this past year. That's how we met. You came to me and we just started. You from that became an affiliate of my motorsport sponsorship summit, which was in January, you had a lot of promo code redemptions. So in the affiliate program, you did a great job this time as well for the Drift Summit. Do you use PRI to meet new people? Is PRI a good place to potentially meet sponsors, or how do you meet new sponsors?
Yeah, thanks for having me on the show, on the channel. I appreciate that. Yeah, so PRI or SEMA or any of these kind of trade shows is a great way to introduce yourself to new brands. It's also a great way for you to continue relationships with brands that you currently do have if they have a booth there, as a sponsored driver or a partnership driver with that brand. You can work with them at that booth, so you can teamwork with your sponsors, and that also grows your relationship with that company, which also makes your sponsorship go up if you're playing your cards right too. So yeah, it's a great networking source to be able to find new sponsors and establish better relationships with current partners.
I think so too. I use it really to stay in touch with people who I've gotten to know over the years. And then every year I meet a few new people. Real quick, Amanda, you have a different strategy when it comes to meeting sponsors. Instead of a push strategy where you're out there making phone calls, you actually use more of a pull strategy where you rely on your results and social media. Explain that to the drivers on the call who want to learn and copy what you're doing and to get sponsors.
Yeah, I think with racing, there's a lot of things all around as a whole that can feed into your program, whether it is generating leads, generating brand awareness. And I have kind of like taken this path to where I'm balancing the athlete influencer lifestyle, right? And it's crazy because dipping into the influencer lifestyle, you begin to learn that social media is taking over. And some of these big brands are not necessarily putting their marketing budgets out specifically just for sponsorships anymore. So they'll separate their sponsorship budgets into paid advertising budgets as well. That being said, I like to kind of go on the strategy of utilizing my social media to dip into paid advertising budgets. So then that way I'm pulling from both actual categories in the brand, which then in turn can create a larger sponsorship. So utilizing social media and growing that platform has really helped me just bring in the funding to pay for all of the racing.
And how is that? Are they calling you then, or are you reaching out to them?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of agencies that you can go work with and say, hey, I have, this is my goal, this is what I want to do. Whether if you don't have social media to offer, which obviously at my scale of social media, it's a little bit different. I get to work a lot with Brandon, my brother, who doesn't have as many followers, but I have the same strategy for his sponsorship stuff. For example, an agency reached out, sending Brandon an email saying, hey, we would like to do a campaign with you. So Brandon is in contact with the agencies, and the agencies are in contact with the brands, and they're these middlemen. And there is a big difference between an agency, an agent, and a manager. Which you begin to learn as you start to dip into the social media and influencer world. Agencies throw deals over the wall. You can take them or leave them. Agents will manage those deals. And depending on at what level you're actually ranked, kind of determines if you're working directly with an agency, if you have an agent that manages 3 or 4 different agencies, and then your manager who helps kind of utilize everything. I work with all 3. However, Brandon doesn't, because Brandon's at a lower level on social media. So I have Brandon working with agencies directly, and agencies will call and say, hey, we have somebody offering, this deal. For example, I'm negotiating a deal right now for Brandon, and it's a Shell commercial, actually. But believe it or not, the Shell commercial is coming from a completely different industry, or a different, I guess, cloud from that actual company, and it's not the typical sponsorship people. They're just the people that are in charge of paid advertising budgets. So that being said, these people, it's always important to have an email or some sort of contact in your bio, because as I began to watch my social media grow, and Brandon's as well, we're getting emails and people say, hey, how much to pay you for 3 Instagram posts and maybe 2 stories. And these deals are depending on at what level, obviously going anywhere from 5,000 to 60,000 just for an Instagram post. So that's where I'm able to utilize my social media, and I kind of set up that strategy to where I want the brands to call me. I don't want to call the brands. But you have to have something to offer, right? And at the end of the day, I do know some people don't always have social media to offer, but that's kind of where, maybe that's where doing a lead generation comes into play, or allowing somebody activation space. But just overall, like working with an agency, they have brands over, 50 brands being like, hey, we need someone who fits this category. Similar situation to like stunt driving and kind of like how that whole industry works too, if anybody's familiar with that.
That's interesting that you say that, because it's a perfect segue over to Andre. When I worked with Andre at Toyota, and I was with Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series at the time, we used Saatchi and Saatchi. That was the agency for Toyota. That they were the point of contact for most of the activations and the things. Andre and I actually met back in the core days when I was with Championship Off-Road Racing, I think 2007 or 2008. And that's how we got to know each other. So in terms of networking, we met in person, but then activating the sponsorship through Lucas Oil, that was through an agency. Interesting, Andre. Andre, what advice do you have on networking to grassroots drifters?
Well, it is a lot of things have been said, and Amanda, you're pretty advanced at this, and I applaud you. We are almost, I'm gonna sound completely like a corporate guy now, but we're almost at the opposite. I mean, we've had our same 4 drift guys for 15, 20 years. And we have drivers that come to us, and be it off-road, be it drift, be it NASCAR, be it NHRA, all the time. So it's sort of to the point of the social media, that's important, because if they're wearing our brand, we want to see how much our brand is getting out there. And probably an example would be Mr. Ryan Turk. He's got a very strong media following. So, we've had him with us for a long time. Mr. Osbo is our champion. Those guys, but to answer your question, it's a give and take. It's like any other kind of relationship with family, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend. You got to communicate. You got to stay in touch. You have to constantly sell yourself. And that doesn't mean necessarily a presentation every time you see someone from Toyota, but you got to be on point. We have a lot of athletes, drivers, young and old, that present themselves to us all the time. They send us decks all the time. We do meet and greets all the time. They approach us at events all the time. So it's a constant interview process.
Then
so
how did you meet your current drivers? How did you meet your current drivers?
That was it was a little bit, well, let's see, golly, Ken's been with us for like 20 years. That was back in our Scion days.
It's been a while then. Okay.
All those guys, actually, Castro, Osbo, and Turk, back when we were really promoting Scion. So that group, I was not in the Scion group, I was in motorsports, and Scion was doing that part of motorsports. So, but the courting, the screening, the social media, the relationship, all applies the same. Scion's still a Toyota brand, even though it's not around anymore. But that's how it started. So obviously, when the Scion brand went away, it migrated over into Toyota Motorsports overall. And they were in TCs back then. And then now they're in Supras as kind of a result. And that was a lot of the Japan influence as well. But yeah, so it's ongoing. You don't start and stop when you're networking. It's ongoing.
So there's hope for drivers on the call who are looking to potentially get sponsored by Toyota. There's still hope that there is a chance that one day they can be sponsored, as long as they don't give up and they're persistent and they form that relationship.
Absolutely.
It's not something that you're closed, you're for drivers, you've done 20 years ago.
Right. And you've heard me, Alex, say on many of these calls, don't come with your hand out. It's more effective for us if you're saying, hey, you know what? I've got a way I can help you sell Toyotas. And that you'll have our attention right away. It may take 6 months, it may take a year, it may take 2 years, but to your point, persistence is always key. Right. Always being on point is always key. Always being ready, always being polished, always being professional. I heard some comments in the last session. Always want to be on point and be yourself. Chris made some good comments at the end of his session about that. Definitely true. We want to know who we're dealing with. We want to know the real person on the track and off. All of those things are part of the constant interview process all the time.
Yeah. So it is never ending. Alex, I'll go back to you and let's talk about your primary, NST. How did you find NST, or did they find you, and what led to that sponsorship?
Yeah, so NST had ironically, NST just had an application process. It was the only sponsor I have that I filled an application process and I actually received it. But this application did come by referral by the Pro-Am series that I won my FD license from. They were like, hey, any of our Pro-Am drivers who are looking for some good partners, these guys are good people. So they came highly recommended. So I took it a little bit more serious. I've seen other big brands that are like, oh yeah, just go online and apply and you'll get sponsored. So this one was a little bit different though. And then through that was multiple interviews that inevitably led me get to my position. And then once I was with NST, focusing on growing that relationship and that brand and keeping that communication, you know, has led it to become a title sponsor of mine for a few years now.
Do you ask for a sponsorship the first time you meet somebody?
No. If
No.
you're actually trying to get sponsored by a company, don't even mention the word sponsorship.
Okay.
Introduce yourself as a normal person, you know, just have that good energy and that good communication.
Yep.
And I think that company will look at you more than they would. I think any company, as soon as you say sponsorship to them, especially if it's the first time you ever met them, instantly they're just like shut it down and they're like, all right, I don't really want to talk to this person anymore.
That's usually the case. And I would assume that's the way at PRI as well. You know, I give presentations at PRI, I speak on sponsorships. I do the educational seminars on sponsorships. You'd be surprised how many decks I get. I don't issue sponsorships. I haven't done that in a long time. Haven't been involved with that in a long time, but I'll walk away from a PRI with literally 5 or 6 decks at the end of every session, which is interesting to me because drivers and teams will use that as an opportunity to sort of hand their marketing material to anybody with the term marketing on their business card. And that's not really the way to do it, because you want to get to know somebody first. You want to understand their business needs and try to find a way that your racing can fit into those business needs. Let's go back to Amanda. Amanda, you race in many different series. How is drifting different from off-road, different from nitrocross when it comes to sponsorships? What sponsorships want from the series? When you're looking for a sponsor for drifting, do they have different deliverables or demands than a sponsor for nitrocross?
Yeah, I think that Formula Drift specifically is very millennial based. Whereas their hospitality at Formula Drift is not as top tier as I would say at nitrocross. Or even just like I was doing some IMSA stuff recently. And depending on the brand, and at what kind of level they're at, kind of determines where they go, right? The Air Force, for example, being they're my title sponsor in Formula Drift. I guarantee you I could not pull as much money from the Air Force if I wanted to go race IndyCar versus my Formula Drift program. Why is that? Because in Formula Drift, it is the 18 to 24-year-old millennial demographic, and they are looking for brand awareness. They're not going to get brand awareness at an IndyCar race. However, I can go pull a different brand, maybe like a Versace brand or Lamborghini, who is looking at doing more B2B business and getting directly involved with somebody who has that type of money. So the B2B and the hospitality side of things are way more important to the brands. It's not about the track or the car on the racetrack at an IMSA race. It's about the opportunity and the hands that you're shaking in the hospitality tent. Nitrocross is very different. It is very entertainment based. Being that Dana White and the Fertitta brothers have now invested a lot into it, they are doing the similar thing that they're doing with it as they did with like UFC and Ridiculousness, and that's more of an entertainment thing. So I am approaching brands and I'm utilizing brands that are looking for kind of that more B2B, also brand awareness side of things. Because nitrocross is so based around content, I see that I'm pulling a lot of these brands that are coming in and saying, hey, how much for an Instagram post? I'll be like, well, actually, instead of doing 30 grand for an Instagram post, let me upsell it and wrap the car. And now it's 50 grand and I'm covering costs for the actual race itself. So they're getting brand awareness, they're getting hospitality access, and we're doing fun content creation because Nitrocross is more entertainment based. Formula Drift is more that millennial. I am starting to do more activation stuff. So brands that are looking for a lead generation, and kind of talking to a lot of the Formula Drift drivers, a lot of them have came to me for advice on sponsorship, and I'm not a sponsorship guru, like, you know, but I've been able to kind of like look, and I think Vaughn is a perfect example of in the space how you can utilize everything that you have to target audiences and target different demographics and different fans. Being that, you know, somebody like K&N wants to generate a lead, but maybe K&N isn't paying enough to be on the social media. So you kind of balance that act out, right? So the more you can beef up your package, the more sponsorship you can bring in as a whole. And depending on what that brand is, you know, it's more like Toyota, for example, they're wanting to sell Toyotas. They're not going to be looking for something that somebody like the Air Force is looking for. So you got to really find what that brand fits as far as that category, as well as, you know, each demographic and each series, but it's all different across the board. And at the end of the day, the more you can beef up the package, the more you're going to be benefiting as a driver.
I like that. I think that's excellent. So you talked about Toyota. Let's head back to Toyota. Andre, why is it that Toyota sponsors drifting? And if a drifter wanted to meet Toyota to potentially get involved in the future, what's a good way to do that?
Well, I mean, you know, again, I still go back to the ways of always being on point, but obviously the events, any of the shows, the PRIs, the SEMAs, the bigger drift events themselves. A lot of times we have a lot of our executives that do show up there. Our TRD engineers show up there. So you never know, especially when it comes to the Grand Prix of Long Beach, those bigger events where they tie into other things, and TRD's headquarters is there. So it's kind of like you just have to be always ready. You know, you never know if you'll see a red shirt or a big white TRD logo that's looking or may have questions or things like that. We are very loyal, and we depend on our drivers in every series to carry our brand and carry it strong. Social media, obviously, in drift, as to Amanda's point, extremely strong. We count on our drivers' followings to carry our branding through that as well. It's not quite the same market as your NHRA or your NASCAR. So, and that's why we're not as heavy with our track activation at Drift as we are at the other series. So, because she was right, you know, the demographic there is very, very different. But another thing, though, we have veteran drivers. They know how to handle themselves. They know how to handle their cars. They've got some great sponsors, you know, Reddy and Rockstar. Those guys are, they're not new at this. So we depend on that. We depend on that know-how, that experience from them.
And you also seem to have very long-term partnerships with your drivers. Mm-hmm. You know, you mentioned that always be ready. And I love the term where luckers where preparation meets opportunity. As long as you're prepared, you're always going to be lucky because there's opportunity everywhere. So to have an opportunity to be a long-term driver for Toyota, which is what almost every driver I know that you sponsor, they've been around decades, 10, 20 years. What is it that they do that keeps you coming back for more?
It is, wow, the analogy I'd make there probably is almost like a good marriage. I mean, you know, you have your good days and bad days, but you do what you can to protect the relationship. And that's both sides. And we have drivers like, you know, our longest drivers probably between the Joe Gibbs Racing and Antron Brown on the NHRA side, it's 20 plus years almost. And even Ken Gucci. You know, it's the relationship itself. Always looking out for the other. Always doing whatever it takes to protect the other. So it's a two-way street. And that's what keeps it long. We don't want you to jump in for 2 years and then jump out. We don't do that. We don't even do that with our Toyota dealers. If you want to be a Toyota dealer, we're looking for long term. That's why there's not 3,000 of them like Ford or something. You know, we want the loyalty. We want the strength. We want the relationship to last. And that's why we don't it may take a while. It may take that persistence for you to get a callback or a sponsorship or something like that. It may take a while, but once you're in, we want you to stay.
Right.
And that's how the whole company is.
It seems like that's a culture in general where lifelong employment, lifelong relationships, B2B partnerships.
We just had a young lady in our office. She just retired after 50 years with the company. I couldn't imagine. I didn't think I'd be here at 30, but it is all the way through the bloodline of Toyota. It's all the way through, from motorsports to vehicles to associates, the whole thing. Before we moved to Texas, our last location in LA, we were there for 50 years. So, I mean, it's nothing short term.
So when a driver's looking potentially to get involved with Toyota, should they look more at the local level, talk to their regional dealer, a regional, Toyota dealer, or go straight to corporate?
I would say probably more the corporate level. The regions don't really get involved in exact sponsorships with drivers. They may help with some track stuff or some vehicle supply, that kind of thing. But it's especially with drift, it's probably going to be on a corporate level. So it's just, again, when you see us, out at events or at drift events, you see our display, start there, asking questions. There'll be people on site that could probably provide some good information to get contact with the right person, and then it goes from there. But the persistence, the patience, it's not going to happen overnight. So that's just being real, reality talk in there.
Yeah, that's true. It's like that with everything. It doesn't happen overnight. And I'm going to run over to Alex again real quick. Alex, you have quite a few sponsors. You don't have one giant primary that consumes all of your real estate on your car. You have a lot of sponsors. I think 16 or 17 of them. Are they all true sponsors where they're giving you cash or product?
Yeah, that's right. I do. I have 16 sponsors. I'm very proud of all of them. I've had them all for a very long time. Like everybody was saying, it's a long-term commitment that I'm here for the long term. So even the very first sponsor I got, a little tiny bagel shop that gave me $500. And I used to think that was like the coolest thing ever. And it's the biggest sticker on my car. And I was buying tires to be able to go to an event because I got $500 from this little tiny bagel shop. Even to now, they're still with me. And it's like, that brand loyalty is important to me. So as far as all the sponsors though, we have different levels of their involvement that determines what they give. So obviously a title sponsor or top tier sponsor should be giving some financial support, right? And then down from that, if you can get free product from a sponsor, and then from there, if you can get free service. So if you have somebody who's like, oh, I'll VA swap your car for you and you won't have to pay for anything, that's huge. And then finally, the last thing I would try to attempt to go for is a discount on products. But I really try to steer away from this level of my career.
Let's talk about how you found those sponsors. Did you find them all the same way?
So originally, when I first looked for sponsors as a grassroots driver, I target locally in my area. So that bagel shop or that little pizzeria shop, and these small local sponsors allowed me to be able to continue my relationship with them. And it's very easy because I'm local. I go into that pizza shop. I might order a pizza there, a couple of times a month or whatever. And just being able to see that. And when you build that relationship in a small sponsorship level, it teaches you how to get bigger sponsors later and how to have that correct relationship, as opposed to just being a grassroots sponsor and boom, now you're sponsored by Toyota. Go ahead and handle that. That's a lot.
Yeah, true. All right, let's stay on you for just a second, since we only have a couple minutes left. Any last words of advice to drifters on the call seeking sponsorship, something that you've learned along the way that you want to relate and share? And then we'll go to Amanda and Andre in that order.
Yeah, sure. So if you're looking to get sponsorships, like I said, really start local. I mean, that's what I did, and it's worked well for me. And even some of those local sponsors are still with me today. And when you actually learn that relationship, you can target larger sponsors. I consider myself very personable, so I'm always trying to engage with these people in person. I don't ever like cold call people to try to get sponsors. It's just not really my tactic. I like that one-on-one and just trying to create that relationship. And who knows, you know, if you go somewhere like a PRI or something and you had a good laugh with a sponsor, or even if you got invited to go out to a dinner and you guys have drinks and having a good time, it's those memories that you guys will share. It's what's going to set you apart from another driver who's trying to be sponsored by the same company.
I like that. Create memories through your experiences. That's a really good one. I like that. Amanda, how about you? Any last words of advice?
Yeah, I think honestly, like Alex was saying, is building those small relationships go a long way. And not only does it go a long way with that person, but also there's a lot of life lesson behind a lot of these things. I wouldn't have been able to manage the big contracts that I have now if it wasn't for the small contracts that I had to learn how to manage first. And just to really touch more on what Andrea said is like, I feel like it's crazy that the racing atmosphere and industry is so big, but it's so little at the end of the day. And you never know, because that person that you've seen maybe standing in the driver's meeting next to you, or even the person working in the kitchen, you never know, could go a long way into this racing industry. And I feel like I've kind of had these scenarios to where at the end of the day, we're all like one big family and everyone's always changing shirts and different titles, but those relationships go so far. And just always having such a professional look and always making sure that you're taking into consideration your brand and your personal image when it comes to being in the industry. I think it's huge. Like, you know, not everyone has great days, but also like if it is a bad day, learn how to make the lemonade out of lemons, right? And so it's like, I know it sounds cheesy, but like it really goes a long way, just everybody in the industry, and always maintaining that personable relationship with a lot of people.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you, Amanda. Andre, last words of advice.
They nailed it, both Alex and Amanda. I mean, little things can turn into big things, but it takes time. And if you're always ready, then you don't have to worry about getting ready. And you know, the relationship over time, it's going to have ups and downs. You guys know the name Kyle Busch. There was definitely down days when we dealt with him, but there was a lot of good days too. The point being is the relationship was still there, and that takes time. Well, no matter who you go through, who you meet, who you greet, it takes time. And that's the patience and the time and the persistence is the main thing. Like they said, you know, little relationships turn into big relationships.
And I agree with that. Good relationships actually strengthen over time. And I can attest to that with several people who I know, yourself included. You know, the first time we met, we didn't know each other. Fast forward 17 years, we know each other quite a bit. And, you know, we know what to expect. So relationships do take time. I totally agree with that. Thank you, Andre. Thank you, all three of you. That was a good session.
Thank you.
Now let's assume that you've met a sponsor, or you met somebody who's a potential sponsor, let's say, and you want to attract their attention to get them to look at your race program. How do you do that? Well, that's where DEX proposals and proof of performance reports pop in. So Megan and I are going to go over the 3 documents that are essential in at least acquiring the larger sponsorships. I realize that with grassroots drifting, it's not always the same, because you're not out there preparing fancy marketing materials, handing them out to large corporations. A lot of it is more personal. It's more individual, more local. However, if you do want to go from the regional series, the pro-ams, let's say, up to the professional, then you are going to have to start to create some professional documents and present in a way that these larger brands are used to it. And that is, if you want to attract attention, you use a deck. If you want to propose a relationship, you use a proposal. If you're looking for renewals, that comes with a proof of performance report. The way I like to look at it is, if you want to meet somebody, then you use a deck. Decks are for people. You create a deck to attract a person. The deck can be eye candy. It can be a video. It can be a PDF file. It can be anything that's colorful and visual that shows what you are doing in order to attract someone who might be interested and say, oh, this is interesting. I want to get involved, or my brand wants to get involved. So decks are for people. Think about it like that. When you want to meet someone, you use a deck. It starts the relationship. It starts the conversation. Now, once you know that person, let's say Andre and I, we've known each other now 17 years. I want to do business with Andre. He doesn't need a deck from me. He knows what I do. What I send now is a proposal. And the proposal can be a Word document. Often it is a Word document. The proposal lists the specific deliverables of what you're going to do in exchange for that business relationship. We always say you don't propose to somebody you don't know. You have to know them first. So the proposal is written to a business because the individual who's reading it is going to pass that proposal on to several others within the business, and they're all going to look at it and decide whether or not it makes sense for the business. Proof of performance reports, that's the important one. So here's year one. Let's do it this way. Here's year one in a sponsorship. One, and you found a sponsor and you got sponsored, and there's some money coming in. That's great. But it's years 2 through 20 where the money comes in. This is where the money comes in, the long-term sponsorships, not the first year. And proof of performance reports get the long-term. That's what gets you renewals. And a proof of performance report shows the sponsor what you've done. It demonstrates your attitude and your thinking and your strategy for that business of that partnership. Proof of performance report is not about how many times you got on the podium and how many times you won a race and all the media you received. It's about how many times your sponsor was alongside you in that media and how many times your sponsor helped you win the race and how many times your sponsor benefited from the activities that you did, whether or not you were racing. You don't have to race to create value for sponsors. We'll talk about that later. Through social media, you can create value all the time. So let's pull Megan back up. Megan is very good at creating decks, writing proposals, and compiling proof of performance reports. Did I forget anything? I know I'm trying to go fast because 30 minutes is a very short amount of time to get all this information in. But speaking of the 3 big documents, did I miss anything? Or should we go straight into how to create a deck?
No, I would say the only thing missed is the race recap report, or it would be event reports for Drift. And we did make a template for that. Let's see, if I could share my screen, I could show it to you guys. But with the help from Gary, we were able to make a template, which is where you can just go in and edit how you did at your event, and then you can send that to your sponsors as well. So you're staying up to date with them all throughout the year. So, because I think that's like the number one complaint with companies is that as soon as a racer or a driver gets the sponsorship, then their communication just falls off and they don't hear from them again until it's the end of the year.
Yes.
And if they deliver that proof of performance report and then they want to renew a contract, it's like, well, you know, we didn't hear from you. We don't know how you did. What did you do for us? And so I would say, yeah, those are the 4 main reports and documents that you would need to get sponsorships and continue it on.
Exactly. We think that you can share your screen now. I'm being told you should be able to.
Okay, awesome. I will get that pulled up really quick here. Alrighty. And then let's see. I do have some others to show. Okay, let me get back to Zoom. Okay, here we go. So I use an app or a website called canva.com, which is canva.com. I highly recommend this to everyone to create your decks, your event recaps, and your proof of performance reports. I use them for our team. I use them for all of my clients. I do have a degree in graphic design. I have the Adobe software. I much rather prefer using Canva because number one, it's free and it's super, super easy to use. So this is the template that we will be sharing with you guys for free. And so I just colored all the text that is to be edited in red. But as you can see here, we have a couple of boxes to lay out the different sections. And so first off, you would just add in the location. You just, type that out there, just like how you use Word. And then one thing that we did add on here, which is very important for your sponsors and partners, is to be able to send them the pictures and the videos that you are getting at your events for them to post on social media, or they can use it in email marketing and advertising, send it to their employees, their partners, However, they use the content, but they need it from you first. And so the easiest thing that I do is I will include this box here that says download photos and videos to post. And then I will add a hyperlink here, add the link to a Dropbox folder or to a Google Drive folder, which is where then you would just upload all of your content from that event. Hopefully you can do it, as soon as it's over. Don't wait till a week later to upload everything and then send this recap report. It should just take you like 15 minutes to fill in all this information. But we have your qualifying results, show results. If you did any media or any articles, any interviews that you did before or after your event, or if you didn't, what you could do is include the links to some of the best posts that you had on your social media. Or if maybe you saw someone else posted a video that included you in there, you could include that link here. So that way you are showing that you're reaching people and, exposing their brands, and helping them get leads with the media and your social media. And then down here, we have social media stats. I have Facebook and Instagram. Feel free to make this bigger if you need to include, TikTok, YouTube, any other social media platforms. And then just at the bottom, this is going to be our next date, so they can make sure they have it added to their computer. But Canva is the easiest platform to use. And then what you can do is just download it, save this as a PDF, and then you can just attach it in an email and send it to all of your partners. And it's super easy to do that. So I think we will send this in the email that goes out to all the attendees after the summit. So that way you guys can all have it. But I do have some other goodies for you guys. So I will include a link in the chat box here. And actually, I will just share my screen again and show it to you guys. But if you go,
while you're doing that, I want to mention real quick is
Yeah.
I cannot see the comments. So I'm sitting on a set and I have a camera in my face and I have a screen very far away and I can't read anything. So I was told earlier that there was a comment for me. I can't read it. Sorry, everybody. If it's really important, then George or Tammy can relay it to me. But otherwise, the panelists can read the comments because they'll be able to see them, but I can't. So I apologize for that.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Megan. Sorry.
You're good. No, you're fine. So going back to decks. So I do have a guide that I created. It's totally free. So you guys can go to my website, motorsportsmarketingtips.com/decks, which I did include that link in the chat box. And all you have to do is put your name and email in, and then it will email you this PDF. And there's 10 different steps and 10 different sections of the things that are to be included in a deck to help you get a sponsorship. So like what Alex was saying, the deck is to start that relationship, but you don't want to send a deck to every single person you meet. Like when you're at SEMA and PRI, they don't want to take home, hundreds of decks that they get from people and racers just like you. So you could give them a business card and make sure you get their business card. So then you can continue the conversation after the show. And then that's when you would email them over your deck. And I love what Alex said about it could be a video as well. And that's something that I am seeing more popular with racers, is that they are doing a kind of like an intro video to give a little taste of what it's like working with you and seeing how are you doing at the track, how do you interact with fans, how's your your attitude, your professionalism, because maybe they didn't meet you in person, maybe you're just having a conversation with someone on LinkedIn or something like that. So it could be a video, it could be a presentation, like a PowerPoint. I recommend Canva to use it to create a deck, because you can just go in there. There's hundreds of thousands of free templates that Canva has, and you can go in there, type pitch deck, and you can get thousands of templates that you can go in and pick from and make a presentation deck for a company that you're trying to pitch to.
So the documents, while we're figuring out what's going on the screen, the documents that we're referring to is a pitch deck is to attract attention. It's something to start a relationship. And Megan has templates there and is using Canva to create those, very colorful. And like she said, I also have seen a lot more videos lately and even links to websites. A really good website is a great deck as well. Once you have that, then you write a proposal, or actually once you meet somebody and once the deck creates that relationship, then you write a proposal that lists the deliverables of what you're going to offer in exchange for value that you're going to get from a company. And let's say you get sponsored, and at the end of the first year of sponsorship, you send a comprehensive proof of performance report that shows everything you've done for the sponsor over the year. But prior to that, you need to send your event recaps. That's what Megan was just showing us on the Canva template. The event recap is everything. Every time you do something, it doesn't just have to be race, but every time you're involved with anything that creates value for sponsors, you want to recap that. And sometimes you send it to the sponsor, sometimes you don't. Sometimes you save it for the end of year proof of performance, which is a compilation of all of your recaps. So if you do, let's say, a race a month or an event a month, you would have 12 event recaps. Let's say on top of that, you do 12 appearances a month. Now you have 24 event recaps. On top of that, let's say you do 5 miscellaneous outings and appearances. So you would add those 5. Some of those you don't send to the sponsor right afterwards because they don't really need to be inundated with that. However, they're all compiled into the year-end proof of performance, which would then have 29 pages of everything you've done. And that's important because marketing directors sometimes don't stay with the company. Sometimes marketing directors change. And so the people that you've been working with and the people who know everything you've been doing are now no longer there. And you now need to educate their replacement and the people they work with as to why they need to continue your sponsorship and what you did for them. And that's what the proof of performance does. So Megan, I'll throw it back to you. I think whatever that issue was, it's resolved.
Yeah, I don't know what that was. But yeah, so the proof of performance report, it can also be, very similar to how your deck looked as far as when it comes to the design. And when it comes to designing decks and proposals and proof of performance reports and race recaps, depending on how many sponsors you have or you're trying to pitch to, I like to customize it to fit their branding. So I'll include their logo, their color scheme, so it's not just my colors or all about me. I want to include them in it as well. So then again, that is something that they could then share internally with their, partners or shareholders or, sales team, that type of stuff. And so, like I said, highly recommend Canva to do all of your designs there. Like I said, I use it for decks, the recaps, and then for the proposals, the proof of performance reports. But proposals are less about the images and videos and the charts and graphs and trying to get their attention. The proposal is more about, trying to set up all the terms to then get a contract in place. And so we do have a proposal template as well. This one is not free, but we do have a coupon code to get 25% off if you use the word summit. So I will again include that link in the chat box there. But yeah, it is a Word document template. I believe it's 8 pages long, what we have, and there are different sections laid out, and it really depends on what are the deliverables that you are promising to this company, and that you can go back and forth and negotiate on those. But it's not just, I want a logo this big, on my shirt, or a logo on the side of the car. It's, how many appearances are you going to do? Are you going to be doing any sampling? Are you going to do any lead generation? Are you going to be doing any social media posts for them? Lay out everything that you are promising to deliver to this company in return for what it is you're asking from them, whether that's funding, products, service, discounts, or all of the above. And it's just, whenever you have everything laid out and you both agree on the terms, it's very easy to then deliver on those, and again, over deliver on what you can do for them. And but they will be checking. And I saw in the chat box, someone commented that they set a reminder in their calendar of when those deliverables are due, and it's up to the team to actually execute on that. So this is a good tip to also add it to your calendar in case you need that reminder. But just know, once you said, hey, like, I'm going to be doing 5 social media posts about your company and this certain product, well, maybe you only ended up doing 4 and you didn't do that 5th one. Well, that could cause for them to not renew with you because you promised, and in the proposal that could turn into a contract, that you would do this for them. And so just make sure that you don't overpromise on the deliverables, but making sure that you can over deliver on your deliverables.
And that makes sense what you said about going into the contract. So we didn't cover that yet, but the deck being eye candy and sort of a document for you to meet somebody. You want to show those companies what you can do from their perspective. If you're going after a beverage company, you want to show in your deck how you can provide sampling or maybe generate beverage sales at an event by partnering them with the concessionaire. If you're, let's say, a tire company or looking to be sponsored by a tire company, you want to show how you're going to show off the durability of those tires, how they help you win races and win events. In the deck. If you want to be sponsored by a power tool company, you want to show in your deck your pit or your crew or your team using those power tools in front of spectators and attendees. If you're going after, let's say, an insurance company like Geico loves visibility, they love exposure. You want to show how their logo is going to be everywhere so that they are top of mind. Same with Optima Battery. Optima Battery likes to be top of mind. You want to show them in the deck how their brand is always going to be there, visible on all of your livery and everywhere you go and everything you do, whether it's racing or not. The proposal, on the other hand, what Megan touched on is it could be cut and pasted into a legal document, and it probably will be. The deliverables that a company wants you to deliver on and says, yes, we want these things from this driver. They will probably cut those out and paste them into a legal document, which is a contract. And that contract will have stated terms. It'll be for a season or maybe a duration, certain number of months. Usually it's for a season or for a year. And during that year, you're going to do the following things. And then those things are what are pasted from the proposal into that contract. So the proposal could become legally binding. So be very careful what you put into a proposal. It has to be something that you're actually willing and able and capable of doing. With the deck, just as more eye candy. Fast forward, now proof of performance, that's what you did. That's not what you're going to do. The proof of performance is every time you go to an event, every time you go to an activity, if you can somehow compile images or media or something from that activity that shows maybe a link that someone else posted, a proof of performance can actually be links to other people's media. But if you can compile that into documents and show what you've been doing all along, it's like your ongoing resume in a way, the proof of performance. And the post-event recaps are individual hits, what you did at certain times, at certain events, whereas the comprehensive proof of performance year-end annual report is the bigger, thicker, more impressive document of everything you did, everything, and everything sponsors did for you. If a sponsor used you in a promotion, used you in a catalog, used you in a social post, you want to try to show that in the proof of performance and the comprehensive proof of performance at the end of the year, because then it shows all the visibility that you're getting the brand. So they are different documents, they're used different ways, but they're all very important. And Megan, you already said how we can acquire those through your website. I know that there's a link there. I don't see the links, but if there's anything else that I'm missing on, please touch it up.
Yeah, I just want to add that proof of performance reports can be really large and have 20, 30, 40 pages in them. Like, you want to include as many pictures and proof of you putting their brand in front of new audiences. So if you are doing a display or a sampling or sales event, or maybe you go into a car show, see if there is someone that you could bring along that could take pictures, and just focus on, hey, like I want to show just these products, or make sure you can see the logo really well and have people around the car or in the background. You know, maybe it's a family friend. It doesn't have to be a professional photographer. Just give them your iPhone or your cell phone and take a couple pictures. That's going to go such a long way when it comes to the time to renew your contract with them, because you're going to have all this literal proof of what you did for them. Whereas a deck is going to be a lot shorter. I would say no more than 15 pages for a deck. And again, the deck needs to be all about the company that you're trying to pitch to. I am not a fan of having just a generic deck that's all about your history and your accomplishments and your race schedule. That's more of for like a resume or your website. The deck needs to be more about, hey, you know, this is the type of people I reach. You know, these are the locations we go to. This is, you know, how much exposure we could get. Just try to get their interest. I do tailor them depending on, you know, I'll go in and look at a company's website and see what types of images are they using, what type of people are they trying to market to, and so that way I can make the deck fit their branding, and so it already feels like it's a good fit for them. I did see a question in the comments. Let's see, where did it go? Oh, okay. Rachel asked, are there specific metrics that companies are looking for? It depends on the company. And so that's a question that I always ask when I am in the first stages when I'm meeting with them. And it can be before I even present my deck to them. But you want to make sure that they do have certain metrics that they are looking for, the key performance indicators, KPIs, you know, because that could be sales, it could be lead generation, it could be interactions, it could be video views, it could be email signups. We want to make sure that you know exactly the KPI that they're looking for. So when you are going out and doing your events, that you are focusing on that. So let's say it's, you know, one of the companies that I work with is they want to have email signups. So at my races and my events, I have a pop-up tent in our pit area, and I have an iPad there, and I have some like, you know, koozies, stickers, you know, just random giveaway items that the company sent to me. And I will be at this tent between, you know, when I'm not busy, and I'll be there to sign autographs, and I'll talk to the people and say, hey, you know, are you this type of person? Because they're looking for specific people, not just anybody that's there. Say, hey, are you this type of person? Do you have this occupation or this background? If they say yes, I'll give them the iPad and say, great, fill out this form really quickly. It'll sign you up for this free program. And in exchange, you can have a couple of these goodies. And then we do have a grand prize that we will do a random drawing for. And so we want to make sure, but so my point is, with this company, the first time I pitched to them, I did not include that at all because I had no idea that's what they were looking for. I was pitching to them more about social media, brand exposure, videos, and I already had that deck created, but I didn't show it to them yet. And as soon as I had that meeting where I asked them, what are your goals? What metrics are you going to be looking for? Then I had to completely change it. And I'm so glad that I did ask them that question, because if I would have showed them that first deck, it would have been a no.
That's a really good point. And it's to say that you asked the brand and the company during the meeting. I think that's key, because it's a question that most teams drivers don't ask. And I think it's probably the most important question is when you're talking to a sponsorship decision maker, the question is, how do you calculate a return on investment? How do you gauge success of this sponsorship? Is it because you can measure sales through perhaps coupons or QR codes or affiliate programs? Is it because you're looking to increase your number of social followers? Is it because you're just creating content? Is it because of the samples I'm giving out? What is the metric that you use to calculate a return on this investment in my race program or in my team? I don't think enough drivers ask that. And if that is the first question you ask, you'd be surprised at the various answers. I think I've said this before on one of the sponsorship summits when Bill Stein came to the Lucas Oil Off-Road Racing Series and wanted a partnership. Their key success metric was they wanted to be right next to Toyota because they were trying to manufacture shocks that would become OEM shocks for Toyota. They didn't really care about the banners and the exposure and the visibility and all that. They wanted to meet Toyota. And so if you're creating a deck to show a brand that you have a relationship with other brands that they want to meet, it's good to know that, because you might be creating a deck that shows how many times you're going to win a race. You might be creating a deck that shows how much media you're going to get, how many social followers you have, how many posts you're going to make, and all this great stuff you're going to do that maybe they don't care about because maybe they just want to meet your other sponsors. Who knows? Speaking of creating value through social media, this is going to be a good segue. Megan, unless there's anything else on decks and proposals, I'll let you take the social media aspect and run with it because you're the social guru and you've taught me everything I know.
Thanks. Yeah, just to recap really quickly. So you start out with a deck, which I have that free guide on my website to help you make a deck and use Canva to design it. And then that would lead into the proposal, which I have the template for that with the coupon code SUMMIT. That link is in the comments as well. And then after that is your event recap report, which we will send in an email to make sure everybody gets that template. And then after that is the proof of performance report, which I don't have a template for that yet, but like Alex was saying, you just compile all of that together. So if there is any questions on kind of the different documents that you need, feel free to leave them in the chat box. But I do want to bring on our next guest, Kelsey, who I have met through the Shift Up Now group. And Kelsey is one of the Formula Drift drivers. And so welcome. I'm very glad to have you on with us tonight.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kelsey, if you don't already know me.
Yeah, so to get started, can you just tell us more about how you got started in drifting and then how has your career evolved?
So I got started in drifting back in 2008, quite a long time ago, and the scene has definitely evolved since then. I started back going to the track with my stock Nissan 240SX, open diff, stock suspension, nothing done to it. The only thing I had going for it was that it was a 5-speed manual. And, it was just all about going to the track and having fun. I had no idea that it would kind of evolve into what is now pretty much my career. But it started really small and just kind of spiraled into becoming a Formula Drift driver.
That's awesome. So how long have you been a Formula Drift driver?
So I earned my Pro 2 license back when it was called Pro 2 before Pro Spec. I earned my Pro 2 license in 2015. So 2015 was my first season competing in Formula Drift. So that means this upcoming season is going to be my 10th season with Formula Drift, which is just insane to think about.
Wow, that is so impressive. So do you have any advice? I know we've been talking a lot, but just kind of with your history, just really quickly, do you have any advice for the beginners that are on the call with us tonight?
I would say the best advice I can give is keep it simple to start with. Don't go too far outside your means to chase some sort of dream, because at the end of the day, you want to focus on longevity. What is going to work long term? And if you are going outside your means to go to events and buy tires and like overbuild your car to begin with, it's not going to last. Keep it simple until you can build up to a point that will bring in more, so to speak. If your dream is, say, Formula Drift, keep it simple at first.
Yeah, that's so true. And that relates so much to social media as well. You know, if you are trying to grow your social media, you don't have to go out and hire an agency and have a big production team follow you around and have these very high produced videos, because they'll probably flop. You know, you want to keep it simple and start small with your social media. And so you can use your phone to pretty much record or take a picture of anything. I mean, the cameras on these iPhones are so good. Like I take way better pictures with my phone than I do with a camera. So start simple, start small. I like to always start out with a content calendar and plan out my post ahead of time, so I'm not being, you know, frank or, you know, looking at Instagram and be like, oh, I haven't posted in over a week. What am I like? I don't have anything to share. So I like to tell my students and racers to just start off with a content calendar. And so I will literally go into like my Google Calendar and I will pick what days am I posting. Is it 3 days a week? Is it 4 days, 5 days, 6 days? You know, how consistently can I post each week? And then I will then go in and write, okay, you know, my event is coming up this weekend. So a few days before, I will do a post to tell people, hey, this is where I'm going to be at. And, you know, this is where you can watch. You know, and then of course, after the event, do like a debrief of how it went, what happened. If I could do like a video to show emotions and what's going on, like that type of content always does really well. But yeah, my best advice is to start off with a calendar. And I love what you said, Kelsey, to start simple. So for you, since you have been doing this such a long time, has social media evolved and become more important for your partners and your sponsors than it was 10 years ago? Because I know 10 years ago, social media, it was still, I think it was still just like getting started when it comes to marketing and brands really understanding that this could be a marketing tool.
Absolutely. Yeah. When back in 2015, when I started with Formula Drift, it was more so Facebook was still the main thing then. You know, Instagram was still pretty new. TikTok did not exist.
Yeah.
You know, so Facebook was kind of that main thing. So the move to do the big move that I made starting out was, oh, I made a fan page versus having like a personal page, was making that fan page. And I thought, oh, like this is what I need to be doing. And this is it kind of thing. But how much it has evolved, and with YouTube and TikTok and Instagram, just everything has grown. And being an influencer now, influencer was not something that was a
Right.
thing 10 years ago. So for me, it's actually been kind of difficult. I've always been more of an in the moment person. So even now I have to remind myself, oh shoot, let me pick up my phone and film this because I have to be an influencer now. Companies really want these influencers on social media because it comes across as more organic versus them putting money towards a commercial. To have real people living real lives, going out to their competitions or races and using these products, it comes across more organic and it helps sell the products better.
Yes, that is so true. And yeah, I know everyone hates the word influencer, but that it's true. But you know, everybody is an influencer, whether you are on social media or you're not. You know, just think of how many people do you talk to in person on a daily basis, and are you, you know, you're talking about, you know, what type of coffee you like to drink, where you bought some new clothes at. Like that's all being an influencer. You're influencing them to, you know, go to this store or buy this brand. So just try, like I always like to tell people, like it's not as bad as it seems. But I get where the stigmatism comes from being an influencer, because I remember like back in the day when it really like hit off and everyone was like, oh, I'm an influencer, you know, I get paid to post this. But now that has come into the motorsports industry, and racers nowadays are brand ambassadors, which also means that they are an influencer. So I love what you said there. Is social media content really important to your sponsors and, you know, posting about the products and how it helps you with your events and stuff like that?
I would say yes and no. I would say the majority of my partners do very highly value social media. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have millions and millions of followers to be able to say, deliver for said partner. Sometimes it's just the engagement of the posts that they value, or just the type of content that you can create for them to post on their social media channels. So, in general, yes, I would say social media is very important to my partners. However, it does take a conversation to find out what each partner is looking for. Some really highly value social media. However, there might be others that maybe more so value, say, that lead generation that was mentioned before, and just all the information from all the information from, like, say, the people at the events, or in-person activations. You have to find out what each partner values, but overall I would say the majority of my partners are finding social media of great value right now.
Yeah, and what I love that you said the engagement matters, because that kind of goes back to what Alex was saying earlier, where he has found better engagement with smaller groups versus the big companies that have, you know, the hundreds and thousands and millions of followers or customers. And that's what I found too, is the follower count doesn't matter as much as it used to before, because now the engagement rate is what matters, because you can have 100 followers, but if they're all bots and ghosts, then that's not going to help out you or your sponsor ever when you are trying to, you know, maybe pitch your product to sell or sign up for something. So being able to have really engaged followers on social media will make such a huge difference. And really it comes from the likes, comments, saves, and shares. So that's how you can measure if your audience is actually engaging with your post. And unfortunately, not all of your followers see all of your posts. I think maybe 10% on a good day see your posts. So if you have 10,000 followers, well, only 10% of them are actually seeing that post. And then a smaller percentage of them are actually engaging with it, and they actually like that content that you put out. So yeah, the follower count really isn't as important as it used to be. It's just a vanity metric. And I have been seeing brands kind of, you know, not have a requirement for that. And that's where, like, the terms like the micro influencers and nano influencers are coming into play, because people that only have 500 followers, they might be a micro influencer, but they can still get sponsorship deals because they have, you know, maybe they have 100 of that 500 people are super engaged and they talk to them every single day and they know all about each other and they have a really good relationship. And so as soon as that person makes a post to promote a company or a brand, those 100 people are going to be the first ones to sign up. And that's 100% success rate. So going back to your social media and your sponsors, are you required to post like a certain amount of posts on social media? Or are you supposed to promote a certain product when you are setting up the deals with them?
Yes and no. Again, it comes down to which partner we're talking about. For example, when I'm working with 303 or Staybill, I do have a specific post calendar, like you mentioned before, where we want to promote certain products over other products. You have to find out, okay, what products are they really looking to push in the market right now, and those are typically what they want to have posted about. Not that you can't post about any of their other products, because obviously if you use them, they want it to be out there that this is your lifestyle, you use these products in real life. But it's always important to say, go up and ask the company, do you have any new products coming out this year? What are the products that you want to see more sales of? How can I help you push these certain products? Is there any specific way or any specific light you want these products to be seen in? Really finding out what the company wants is really helpful. But some companies may just give you free reign. They may say, okay, yeah, like we want to see a minimum of 4 posts from you throughout the year, but do what you want, so to speak. Sometimes that's actually the hardest partner to work with because
Yes.
you're never really sure what they want or what they're happy with. You kind of are putting things out there and you're grasping at straws. So I always prefer the partners where I can get more information from, like, what works for you, what do you like to see more of, because then I can really go off of that and build off of that.
Yes, exactly. I'm actually going through that right now with a partner. And like, yes, they have been very vague. Like we agreed upon 6 posts. They don't care when, they don't care if it's a video or a picture or like what product is promoting. And so I am struggling with like, okay, how am I going to create this? Because now it's like it's so wide open. Like I don't know like which direction I'm gonna go in with each one. And then it's like, I want to make sure like I make them happy too and not miss something. So yes, it is so much easier if like they have at least some like parameters set of what they expect. So
But I will say
yeah.
this is also an opportunity. If you find a partner that isn't really sure of what they want, maybe that's a partner that's somewhat new to social media marketing. I do have a couple partners that this is kind of a new thing for them. Sponsorship is a new thing. So they're not exactly sure what they want. And sometimes it's using your experience as an influencer and as an ambassador and say, well, this has been really successful for my other partners. So let's try this with your brand and see how that works. And based on how it performed at the end of the year, let's look at that. And if it didn't work, let's pivot. If it worked, hey, let's build upon that. So sometimes you can use that as an opportunity to really guide your partners. And then they're grateful because they get this knowledge and this help deciding what they want. But then again, sometimes it is difficult just because you never know.
Yeah, no, that's such a good tip though. So what is your preferred platform and are you on LinkedIn? I see we have a comment that asked about LinkedIn.
So my preferred platform is probably Instagram, simply because that's the one I am more active with, and I feel like there is a large millennial demographic there. Earlier it was mentioned. I think Amanda mentioned, each of her motorsports that she competes in, they kind of have a different demographic. Formula Drift is very millennial based. And I find that Instagram kind of fits that demographic because of the amount of millennials on there. I almost feel like there's an older demographic on Facebook because, 10 years ago that was the main platform. And now some of the younger, Gen X, Gen Z, whatever they call these generations now, they are gravitating more towards TikTok. So sometimes it's a matter of figuring out what demographic is your partner looking for, and do you utilize a platform that will reach that demographic accurately. As far as LinkedIn, I do have a LinkedIn. I don't use it probably as much as I should. I'm not very active on it, but it is a good place to have more, I would say, B2B conversations. It's a great place to say network and connect with other people in your industry. It's less so, I think, for reaching, say, the consumers. Not saying that there aren't consumers on there, because, hey, if we're all in the industry, all of us are technically consumers. But as far as being a consumer based platform, I think that it's more of the Facebook, the YouTube, the TikTok, the Instagram, and things like that.
Yeah. Are you on YouTube?
I am on YouTube, but I'm kind of going through a revamp of my YouTube. I used to mainly do event recap videos on my YouTube, but I'm starting to think that those aren't maybe as successful. So I want to switch to more of a vlog style because it's more in the moment versus a, hey, this is like an event recap. This is what happened this weekend. And it's maybe a little more boring that way versus an in the moment, maybe behind the scenes type thing. So this year I'm kind of hoping to kind of change up my YouTube a little bit.
Yeah, that's good. I've been doing that last year. I did more vlog style videos. But this year I'm going to be doing it more myself, because last year I had a friend that was helping me with it. And so he would film everything and then edit it. But this year I'm doing it more you know, I just am talking to the camera and doing more vlog style that way. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I see that content do so well on YouTube as well. And there's such an opportunity to monetize on YouTube where you really can't do that on other platforms. I know like Instagram used to have the bonuses, which that was
Yeah.
a nice
nice.
deposit, but yeah, I really bummed that went away. So yeah. And if for LinkedIn, I am also on LinkedIn. I have not used it as much as I should have, or as I have in the past. But yeah, LinkedIn, like you said, is excellent for those B2B relationships. I love using LinkedIn for making an introduction to someone or to a company, especially if it's before like the PRI show or SEMA show. And I have my eyes set on, you know, let's say it's a tire company that I want to work with. I'll, you know, first make sure that they're going to be attending the show. I'll go to their LinkedIn profile like a week before, and I'll look at the employees. And LinkedIn tells you exactly who works there and what their job title is. So it makes it so easy to find like a marketing manager or, you know, the president. So I will look for, you know, the important people and shoot them a message on LinkedIn and just say, hey, you know, my name's Megan. I am a drag racer. By the way, I'm going to be at the show coming up, and I would love to have the time to meet with you at your booth and just learn more about your company. I'm not pitching to them at all. I'm not asking for a sponsorship, because like they talked about before, you know, you don't want to ask them for money in your first conversation, but just try and make a good first impression with them. So I love using LinkedIn for those opportunities. And then for me personally, my favorite is Instagram, but I get more engagement on Facebook, and I have a larger audience on Facebook as well. But my Facebook is older. So kind of like what you were saying, setting up the fan page, I set that up as well. And I also, if there's anybody on here that does not have a fan page or a business page set up on Facebook, you need to get that set up and stop using your personal account just for that. So create the business page as your fan account and post there. But I started that long before I started Instagram. So there is that, you know, just that growth that was there from the beginning. But yeah, like as far as like comments, shares, link clicks, I get way more of that on Facebook. And so that tells me when I'm doing certain promos, I need to tailor them depending on which platform I'm on. So like you were saying earlier too about the demographics. So if it is more for the younger audience, then I'll know to do that on Instagram and less on Facebook, and vice versa. But if it is something where I'm doing a giveaway, or it's where we're doing a sign up for something or selling something, I'll do more of that on Facebook, because I know that will get more traffic. And Instagram makes it hard to do those things as well. You know, you can either click on the link in a story or in the link in your bio, and they make it to where you have to do extra steps to get people to a website. And so yeah, so I do tailor my content depending on the platform because of the engagement and the type of audience on there. So going back to you, so you said Instagram's your favorite. What type of content does the best for you on Instagram?
I find that depending on, or no matter what platform I'm posting on, the best content tends to be the content where I show more of my personality. Because one thing that's very important in this world when you are trying to, say, differentiate yourself from another driver, another person, another influencer, brand ambassador, whatever it may be, it's you. It's your personality. Who do you want to be, and what do you want to convey? Because ultimately it's your story that people are going to connect with. So I am not huge into, say, doing tutorial style videos. I tend to be more of a goofball, to be honest. I like making people laugh, so I may do some funny little skits in some of my stuff, and I just find that anything where I am more personable and show my personality, that tends to connect with people more, so it does better. And another way to kind of engage with these people more and show your personality is or at least to like boost your engagement is comment back, reply to people. You know, the more engagement that you can bring by showing personality and responding to comments and things like that, that overall is going to be the best thing you can do for your social media.
Yes, that's so true. Two of the best tips ever. Yeah, I love that you said that. Yeah, social media is a social platform. You have to be social. You have to talk. You have to respond to comments and messages. And, even if it is just to say thank you, you still have to do that. And it does help. I mean, the more comments that you leave, it increases your comment count, increases your engagement rate, increases your points with the algorithm to then show it to more people because people are commenting on it. So the more you can comment, it helps you out overall to get more people to comment. And I think some people just don't put that together in their head. Sometimes they just post and then get off the platform as soon as they can. Yeah, just be social. And I love that you said to show your personality and yeah, like that type of content I think will always be everybody's best content because it's what makes you stand out. Like the drift videos are really cool, but and I think actually someone commented in the chat box that I read, they asked like what type of content is kind of overrated, and someone said like the GoPro type footage. And they said like it's just getting generic and there's no messaging behind it. So I love like if you can show your personality, whether you are more serious or you're more goofy or you're more of a teacher style, like whatever your niche and your personality is, like show that online because that's how you're going to stand out. And again, kind of going like with what the other guests have been saying, is you'll find that company that matches your brand and your personality, and you'll be a great ambassador for them.
Yeah, and actually
So
going off
sorry,
of that, yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
I was just gonna say, going off of that, I've actually legitimately had a company say to me, "Hey, look, all of these photos are great, but they all look the same." To the untrained eye, or to say a company that isn't as familiar with drifting, they don't know which track is which. They just see the car drifting with a bunch of smoke and it just all looks the same.
Yeah.
And, to me, I'm thinking, well, what do you mean? Like, it looks so exciting. There's two cars next to each other. There's smoke billowing. Like, this clearly looks more exciting than no offense, I'm throwing it up, but just a drag car on the track, right? Like that has to look all the same. But really, that's the point though, is they want to see more of you, more of your personality, because at the end of the day, you are the brand ambassador and they're partnering with a brand ambassador, an influencer. They're not partnering with the car. So
Yes,
that's something to keep in
exactly.
mind.
Yes, that's so true. So do you take your own pictures and videos and edit them, or do you hire someone to help you out with that?
Typically, at all of my Formula Drift events, I will have multiple people doing media for me. I'll have one videographer that stays with me and my team at all times. So that way, if the car breaks and we're back in the pits, he will run back to the pits to make sure he's trying to get video of repairs happening. And then I have, some media that shoot for other drivers as well, like a photographer and a videographer. Now, I'm very budget limited. So I pay them for these photos and these videos, but then I actually edit all of my stuff by myself simply because I don't have the budget to be paying for edits. And that's okay, because at the end of the day, if you're being authentic and showing your personality, people aren't going to pay attention to how good the edit is online. And sometimes I kind of forget that and I get in my head and I'm spending hours and hours trying to edit something and make it look really cool, when some of my best videos have literally just been a few clips thrown together. Or one of my best performing videos is I literally did the green screen thing, had a photo in the back, it's my face, and I told a dad joke and moved out of the way and showed the picture behind me, and it's me holding a coilover like a baby. Like, I literally just told a joke. and it did great. That's one of my best performing reels, just simply because it's authentic, it's silly, it's organic. So sometimes it's important to keep in mind with that. You can easily find a photographer at the track, say, hey, like, I'll throw you $50, $100. Could you please get photos of me, video of me? You know, maybe if you have a friend or, you know, a family member at the track, give them your phone, have them put it in video mode, take vertical video, whatever. Just having that and then working with that, like, you can do a lot with that. And same with just setting up a phone on a tripod and filming yourself. It doesn't need to be fancy to do well.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm seeing more of the authentic, like unedited, raw videos are doing well on social media versus the highly edited, high production, like very professional and polished. And I think that, but it does depend on what platform it's on too. Like YouTube is obviously very high edited videos, whereas I feel like TikTok nowadays is very like unedited, and TikTok is now like long version videos. But then I feel like Instagram is in the middle. Like I feel like Instagram wants some edits, but not too much, not too little. And then Facebook, I feel like is just kind of whatever. Like I can't really figure that. Facebook is trying to just like the catch-all. But yeah.
Well,
So
and that's what's difficult, to be honest, too, with there's always changing trends. And then with algorithms, you know, for a while they were pushing reels, and then it came to, then they started pushing carousels. So sometimes it's really hard to just keep up with the trends. So at the end of the day, like I said, the best advice I could ever give would just be yourself and create that organic following that will follow you no matter what you post, because they want to see you.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so just to wrap up, one last question for you is how has social media helped you get sponsors? Like, has it been, you know, to do kind of like what Amanda was saying, like the paid advertising, or has it just been that engagement and that organic relationships you're building with your followers?
I would say the biggest thing social media has helped as far as, say, finding partners is it's basically a resume. You know, they can go on your social media and see what you have done for other companies. And let's say, for example, you are just starting out, maybe you don't have any partners yet. Fake it till you make it. You know, do some review on some product that you happen to really like, or, you know, a company that you would love to work with in the future, or something that you use all the time. Show yourself using it, because that then becomes an example of what you can create for a company that you do work with in the future. So, you know, treat your social media as a resume, but as a place to show your work. And that at the end of the day is really going to help you out.
Yeah, that's such great advice. Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Kelsey. You had so much good stuff to say. So I hope all of our listeners took notes on that. So thank you again, and I will hand it back over to Alex.
Hey,
Thanks for
treat
having me.
your social media as a resume. That's great. I love that. I love that because it's so true. Everything's online, everything's digital, everything traces back to us. Kelsey, I'll see you hopefully next month at Long Beach Formula Drift. Are you going to be there?
Unfortunately, won't be at Long Beach, but I'll be at Road Atlanta. Yeah.
All right. I don't know if I'll make Atlanta, but one of these events, I'll be there.
Awesome. See you soon.
Thank you both. You guys did great. So now we're going to head over to the new session, relatively new. We've done it twice now in prior summits. We sort of nickname it sponsor speed dating, or 15-minute one-on-ones with sponsorship decision makers. I'm just going to grill them and ask them how to get sponsored. Why do they sponsor? What do they look for? For anybody on the call that's interested in learning more about these brands or how to get sponsored by them, hopefully these sessions will help us do so. So George, let's pull up Scott Lukaitis from Engine Ice. Scott, are you there? There he is. Scott, how are you, man? Here's an industry veteran. This guy has more experience than I do. He's seen a lot of sponsorships over the years.
I have, and honestly, the power sports side way more than automotive, but it's exciting to look at how similar the two sports really are.
Yes.
And to someone else's, to Kelsey's point just a minute ago, your social media is your resume, and that speaks a lot of volume to, making sure you're doing the right thing out there for everyone to see, because, we look on someone's post, and if it's kind of questionable, we may not look at them as a potential partner. So yeah, good to be here.
Yeah, not only is it a digital resume, it's a forever evergreen perpetual digital resume.
Absolutely.
In 25 years, people will still be looking at that resume. So
God
everything
willing, right?
is permanent. Just remember that.
Yeah,
well, let's get into Engine Ice. Let's go straight
Yep.
into the heart of it. We have a lot of drivers on the call that are interested in getting sponsored by whatever brand that suits them and that is a good fit for them. If Engine Ice is a good fit for one of these drivers, how can they approach you? What do you look for? Why do you sponsor? Let's just go over it real quick. Let's touch on everything.
So as I mentioned, Engine Ice, well, my background is definitely way more power sports than automotive, and the same thing for Engine Ice. Engine Ice is a company that's been around for a little over 20 years in the power sports side, and we're just now starting to break into automotive. So for us, we're looking at partners that can then help expand our reach into dealerships, into repair shops, into performance automotive, and then the big summits and turn 14s and those kind of things. So we're looking for partners that help build that groundswell of drivers and customers asking for our product, so that the big companies have to take us on.
So you're looking to get into new markets.
I'm sorry?
It's essentially that same concept of, if you want to enter a new market, but nobody knows you in that market, stand alongside professionals in that market who are already well known, because then the fans, the locals, they'll accept you in. Stand alongside proven people and proven brands, proven athletes, and it gives you legitimacy and credibility. So you're looking to enter new markets.
Yeah, and to the point that everyone's an influencer, right? So if you're a local racetrack guy, you're the micro influencer in your neighborhood. You're probably the car guy in your family. You're probably the car guy in your block, and you're the one that people go to asking for advice. So, even though you don't have millions and millions of followers, you're influencing a core group of people that are buyers, and that's the company or the type of drivers and the type of people we want to work with.
Everyone is an influencer. I totally agree with that. It's sometimes just our best friends, people we know, people who we look up to, we'll follow their lead when it comes to buying parts or anything that's endemic, at least. So what do you look for when you're selecting a team or a property or a driver to sponsor? What specifically do they have, other than, let's say, they can make introductions to you and they can bring you into a new market? Let's say they can do that, but now you have 15 good people to choose from. How do you pick the driver or drivers to sponsor?
That's really hard. Usually for us, it's come from, people telling us that, oh, this is a good guy to work with, or this is a relationship from another relationship. The good things happen to good people, right? So if you're a good driver and you're a good person and you're promoting the right positivity, you're going to pass it along to other people. And several of our drivers right now, they come from just a relationship we've had with somebody else. Our NASCAR driver, our Xfinity drivers are both relationships that we've had previously from a partner of theirs or a friend of theirs say, hey, you should work with this person.
Excellent. And I agree with that. I think personal referrals by far are probably the number one way. Let's say somebody doesn't know anybody who knows you. Are you still looking at decks? Would you accept a proposal? Would you accept a solicitation?
I do.
Or a cold call?
I still do look at those, because you never know. To be honest with you, most of our relationships have come out of even just going to PRI and talking to someone at a show. And truthfully, I've had a couple of drivers in the drift category come up to me at PRI last year and the year before, and we've talked, and they've come back to say hello. And, we've shared, hey, thanks for sending me a couple of cases of that product. It works really good. I've been telling friends. I think, honestly, my relationship or my introduction to you for this opportunity came from a driver we met at PRI. So it's just all about sharing that networking. And then how does that lead into more opportunities?
So then let's get in detail. What does a sponsorship from Engine Ice look like? Is it cash, product, marketing, combination of the above? Does it vary per team, per driver, per series?
Right now it's really just product. You got to sell a lot of coolant to make a cash deal worthwhile to us on the return on investment, especially for a brand new product. Now, it's to the point just a little bit ago about having content out there, about having images, about having a great social media. It's about being easy to work with. So some of those drivers, if they're very easy to work with, our social media team finds it much easier to work with them. We do giveaways, so we'll share, we'll send out a couple of cases of product to your users or your fans or likes. So we collaborate on stuff like that. But from our perspective, it's really just getting product into the hands of the right people. And that's kind of what we're doing right now. That doesn't mean that down the road, the budget doesn't increase, and it probably will if this automotive thing takes off like it should. But it's all stepping stones, right? So initially it's groundswell, grassroots. Here's some product, try it, tell people. We know when a certain area or certain drivers are doing well at promoting it. We hear from people. So as those things get better, then we start to look at financial contributions as well.
So am I hearing you correctly? And am I reading between the lines when you're saying we'll see how this automotive thing goes? We're looking at the automotive market, that you actually might be in the market for some drifters to sponsor because you are looking at this space as a potential marketing avenue?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I welcome anyone that's on this call to reach out to me. Grant, I'd love to give you some product to try. That's kind of where we're at. We're a new brand into automotive, so we don't have the reputation like we do in power sports. So I want people to try it. I want people to tell me this stuff works, and that's means a lot to us. So when you're telling me that it works and you're telling your friend it works and your friends are telling your friends it works, then we start to see how it expands.
How can somebody get a hold of you, or what's the best way to approach someone at Engine Ice in order to start that relationship?
Honestly, just send me an email. It's scott@engine-ice.com. Super easy.
Everybody's writing that down right now.
Yeah, super easy. I'm watching my inbox piling. But yeah,
you're, you're a brave marketing director.
We're not ready.
By the way, is the director of marketing and sales for Engine Ice. So you're very brave by doing that. You realize you're going to be inundated now.
It is what it is, right?
It is.
We're not at the point of looking at financial support, but obviously product support is something we're absolutely doing right now. And like I said, as it gets more popular and more distribution is taken on with it, then we expand on that further. So like I said, we're very early in the stages on automotive, but it's got to start someplace, right? And this is where it starts with the grassroots drivers in not only drift, but all forms of motorsports.
So you were saying what really has value is to help you sell more product. Are you selling through retailers and distributors, or do you sell direct? And if a team has a relationship with a retailer or a distributor, is that going to put them on top of the list?
That's going to certainly help. It's not a direct correlation. I mean, I'm not going to say that 10% of whatever you sell, like we don't do that yet, but yeah, we sell direct. I'll the caveat is in motorsports we sell direct. Power sports we sell through distributors and dealers and stuff like that. So, but in motorsports, automotive, it's consumer direct, and then we're trying to work with some of the smaller auto racing distributors and trying to get that all expanded a little bit more.
So if it's consumer direct in the auto space, do you have an affiliate program then, or how does that work? Can you measure results and track success?
Not yet. Hoping to. Like that's the goal of it. I mean, as of right now, our automotive entry is very, very early in the life cycle. Getting product to the market, getting product in people's hands, stuff like that. So it's very early. We will at some point be able to do some sort of, hey, here's discount codes, and now I know how many you're selling for me. We haven't gotten there yet, but I mean, this is a very genuine conversation. This is a chance for everyone to be in kind of grassroots with us and see where it goes.
Yeah, that's why we're here. That's why we're here. We're literally trying to help grassroots drifters as well as young brands and any brand getting into the drift space and create those relationships. These summits are all about networking. Last time you and I talked, Scott, you were talking about your story. You want drivers to help tell you your story. What is the story of Engine Ice that a driver can say and explain and become part of that story and therefore part of your team?
Well, we want them to tell their story and how our product helped make their story better, right? So we want our product keeping your vehicle cooler longer, allowing you to succeed more in your drifting in your drifting career, and how maybe our social media introduces you to the right people. Maybe there's some collaborative efforts between some of our automotive drivers and some of our power sports guys. Maybe there's just this kind of synergy between everybody. But what we're talking mostly about is telling, and I think they had said this before, about telling your story as a driver and not just being, a sticker on a fender, not just being, like they said, the same GoPro video. It's everyone's got something different to talk about. I mean, there's hundreds of drift drivers, right? So what separates you from somebody else? What is your story? You came from a different background. Did you come from, like, how do you differentiate yourself from everybody else?
Right. So I realizing that you come from the power sports space. What's an example of a really good power sports sponsorship that maybe a drifter can emulate and copy?
Gosh, that's a strange question. Right now, some of the stuff we're doing with Jared Meese in American Flat Track is really effective. Some of the collaborative efforts we've done with a couple of smaller supercross teams, where we're doing giveaways with them, and their riders are kind of younger, getting started, and just kind of making the break into the professional ranks. We've got a power sports racer that's a privateer racer that's living out of his van, traveling around the circuit, and he's doing a weekly vlog, which is kind of interesting because he's telling the real story. And I was talking to his dad over the weekend, because his first couple of vlogs were a little bit too raw. Maybe there's a little bit too much swearing. And I said, listen, it's like, that's fine to show emotion when you made the main event for the first time in your career, stuff like that, but not when you're playing Top Golf on Wednesday night. So when you're making these videos or you're telling these stories on social media, you need to tell them with authenticity, but at the same point, the same thing that you would tell your grandma on Easter dinner, right? Like, you don't want to have anything out there that you're embarrassed to tell your family about, right? So do the right thing, show your emotion, show your, who you are authentically, but don't overdo it, right? Don't go to that the music that you're playing in the backgrounds and stuff. Let's make it a little bit more PC, because, I may be okay with it, but our corporate leaders might not be okay with it. And I don't want to have that conversation on a Monday morning with the CFO or CMO at our company saying, hey, Scott, this is what your driver did over the weekend. I don't ever want to have that conversation. So don't make us have that conversation.
That's a really valid point. And in fact, that's a great segue to any final words of advice. I appreciate everything that you've already explained here, and these sessions go really fast. That's why we call it speed dating. Sure. But with a minute left to go, what words of advice do you have for drifters on the call? Just sponsorships in general. It doesn't have to necessarily be Engine Ice, but it can. It could be just, what do they need to know?
Yeah. So my big thing is I believe in what I call the power of one, right? It takes one opportunity or one conversation or one anything that can change your life forever. And I look at, websites like, so drivers need to treat their driving or their racing as a business, have a marketing plan, have a business plan. Don't kind of swing from the hip on it. And I'm a big believer in what LinkedIn can actually do to help get more sponsorships and different sponsorships. I think I said to you when we had our quick conversation, everybody keeps going back to this same well, right? There's only so much money in endemic sponsorship, but there's a lot of money in other companies, in major, Fortune 500 companies. And if one of those companies has a couple extra $10,000 in a budget out of $1 million budget, and you're telling the story that they connect with, that means a lot to your business or to your drifting, right? So become active on LinkedIn, look at what's available, be a little bit different than you would be on TikTok or Facebook, be a little bit more professional on there, but tell your story, and you just never know when that one's going to come in.
Boy, and that is so true. That is so true. Thank you so much, Scott. Thank you for the time today.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for sharing all that insight. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a great evening. Bye.
Next up, we're going to pull up Robert Wilson from Boxo USA. Robert and I spent almost a decade working together at Lucas Oil, so we share a lot of the same thoughts and experiences. Robert, how's it going?
Going good, going good. Thanks for having me. And man, you look so HD. My camera sucks, dude. You're like super live right there.
I'm trying. You got a cool background too. Is that your garage?
Yeah, a couple of my own little projects, I need sponsorship, man. Teach me how to do this. I've been listening.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, since you not only are the strategic partnership manager at Boxo, but you also run Round 2 Designs, where you do sponsorship assistance, coaching, and agency work. Essentially, you understand both sides of it. Let's go right in. There's drifters on the call. They're looking for sponsors. It could be Boxo. It could be other companies. What are some things that they need to know and how to get sponsored?
Oh man, I think in today's world, and I only signed on when Kelsey was towards the end, and we run the Sparko social media, so we get to see her. She's a Sparko athlete, and man, she does an awesome job on supplying content and tagging and allowing us to be able to share that kind of stuff. So I would say, and mainly we're going to be talking about Boxo tonight, but I think with all the companies that we manage, their sponsorship and their social content is such a big thing these days. We need it every day. You're posting on social, you should post at least once a day, up to 5 times a day, depending on what your growth that you want to get. So wow. Every single day we need a new piece of content, or we need somebody to tag us, somebody to have a hashtag where we can go in, because budgets for capturing this media, I think in any company, unless you're kind of Monster Energy or people that we've dealt with in the past, when we're in our before lives, it's really hard to be able to get that. If you think about getting that content on a daily or right. weekly, or man, if I get on a monthly or a yearly basis, I'm pretty happy.
Does Boxo work with their teams and drivers to create media? Do you give them media? They give you media? You share media? How does that work?
Absolutely. I mean, part of the thing with Boxo, we're a tool and toolbox company, storage solutions. And so luckily our stuff gets used and it's pretty organic, because that's another thing too. You can force advertising on people and they'll just turn right off to it. So if it can kind of be organic, then it always works a little bit better. So yes, we do big production stuff. Usually it used to be on a quarterly basis. Now I'd almost say it's on a yearly basis that we'll do one big production where we may have, videographers with Reds and helicopters and drones and all that stuff. I wish I could do that, every week. It's just pretty hard. And we'll have some of our top influencers out to do that. But we're always asking our influencers, our sponsored athletes, to supply us with that stuff, whether it's 10 seconds or a minute long.
So in what sports is Boxo in? What motorsports currently? You're mentioning athletes and influencers. And are you looking to expand into drift or do more in drifting?
Yeah, well, we're actually in drift and we've been in it for quite a few years. We have Odie and Matt Field as 2 of our main FD drivers in it, and some lower drivers as kind of support product. So we're always looking to expand. The biggest thing is that we're a small team. The company's only 7 years old. And that's one of the things I could tell you. I'm sure in your link or in the recording, they'll have email addresses and social media and all that kind of stuff. Very small team trying to make this all happen. And I wish I could spend an hour with everybody every day, but that would mean that every one of my days is 20 hours just talking to DMs that come in, on social, and emails that come in. So you have to be patient. You have to understand who you're speaking to. Again, we're not Coca-Cola. Alex, you and I worked for Lucas Oil for a long time. In their sponsorship department, they had 6 full-time people. Just grasp that. 6 full-time people getting salaries and benefits and everything. Think about how much that costs them. At Boxo, we have 5 people total. And out of those 5 people, probably 4 of them deal with sponsorship stuff too. So you have to be a little patient. Yeah, kind of have to understand who you're dealing with. I think the biggest turnoff that I always see is that if people get real impatient and they really start to turn the table and they start getting angry or bitter, that's a, that's a turn off right away. I mean, for sure, that's one that just gets deleted, doesn't even go into the maybe, or the, maybe if I get a chance to reply, that one just gets aced out. And depending on how they're speaking, even blocked, too. I hate to be so blunt, but man, time is so valuable. And you just have to understand that everybody, we all, we're all important. We're all looking after our own stuff, but you got to put yourself in that marketing director's position and just understand that that marketing director, the engine ice guy, anybody that you're going to talk to, even after me, ask them how many proposals they get every single day. And
I'm going to ask you, how many do you get every day?
I mean, at minimum 20, and
Wow.
and potentially in between the DMs and proposals and decks, I've seen it like be 70 in one day, only because, again, anything that has a nut and a bolt, as it pertains to BFGoodrich, we can be a part of. We're very well known, and we put a lot of effort into power sports, but motorsports is another big key thing of us. Boating, helicopters, aviation right now. If anybody's an airplane racer or anything to do with airplanes right now, reach out to us and stuff, right? We're talking about drifting right now, but it's a little different.
So seeing so many decks and proposals and, sponsor me emails, what is it that you look for? And what gets someone to the top of that list where you actually do pay attention to them? What are some things that drivers on the call today can learn from and say, if they do it, it might elevate their status, at least in the consideration realm?
Well, I think the number one thing for us, especially right now, is for people to start with our affiliate program. Go to boxusa.com, go to the bottom, sign up for our affiliate program. It's going to take you 5 minutes. You're going to get 10% off of any product that you get. You're going to get a code generated to you that you can share to your followers, and you're going to start out with 10% cash back to you. So this is the entry into sponsorship, right? We're going to give you a small discount to be able to purchase product. We hope that you're going to take that step. If you really want to be sponsored by BFGoodrich and you are not, Rob McCachran or F1 driver, then it's going to be hard for us to see you. So get signed up with that. And we monitor that. We can't monitor every proposal or sponsor me, but we do look at that affiliate program because that's generating sales. We do sell direct to consumer. So that's a little bit different than, like, say, if it was Lucas Oil or some only went through distributors. So if we have, 100 people sign up for that affiliate program, and at the end of the month, we look at that report, 98 of them probably not going to be very much, but 2 of them might stand out. And if that one person sold $40,000 worth of product, guarantee you that person's getting a phone call next month, and we're going to start talking, right? So I would say, as it pertains to us, and I know a lot of people are doing this now too with the affiliate programs, is to get started there. And then just, social, again, it kind of goes back to social. If you're using our products, tag us, use the hashtags, and that way, hopefully we can see you even more. The emails, I can, it's sad to say, but man, the emails just get buried. DMs, I will tell you, you will never get a sponsorship from us from a DM. Don't even waste your time unless you are already the top guy, and we probably can't afford you if you're the top guy. I can just tell you from a DM on social media, you are not going to get sponsorship. You should start by an email or going to the website.
And I'm assuming that's because you get so many of them, it's really hard to filter through the ones that you might want to partner with.
Yeah, again, I mean, just kind of think about, and we're super small in the grand scheme of things, but DMs might be 30 to 50 a day, right?
Wow.
First, we're going to look at those people that mentioned us so we can share those stories. Again, 5 people total. That's from people that are building product, unloading product, shipping product, answering the phone calls, cleaning the toilet, or sweeping the floor. 5 people, right? So when we do get to sign on social media, we're going to share those stories first because that's content for us. We're going to do our own posts. If you start thinking about that, that could be 15, 20 minutes. If you get sucked into it, an hour. per day. And that's only on one platform. Luckily on Instagram, we can kind of share from Instagram to Facebook. Then you're going to go over to TikTok, LinkedIn. I mean, there's just so many things going on that take time.
Yeah, that is so true, especially when you're a small team trying to do so many things. But in a way, that's also a benefit to the drivers on the call looking for sponsorship, because if they can assist you and become an extension of your marketing, if they can go to events that you can't make it to because you don't have the resources, and they can activate or promote or market at those events on behalf of Boxo, that might lead to an opportunity for you to at least hire them for that event. And when I say hired, that means sponsor them for that event. I realize it starts with an affiliate program, and you're going to monitor the affiliate program to see who actually can generate sales. Now someone's starting to generate sales, does it lead to a bigger sponsorship where they can start to represent at more events?
Oh, absolutely. Because we see a lot of these teams that have toters and semis or larger trailers. It's more than what we have, right? We would love, we're a West Coast based company. We travel all across the country for shows, but it costs a lot of money. And again, kind of come back down to, I'll say that 5 people that are going to be doing it all. And if I'm gone at a show for 5 or 6 days, that means there's 4 people now, in the office. So yeah, I love that idea. I also love what you brought up too, is that being able to, all this is about networking and connections. So if you can turn us on, if you're in Pennsylvania, we're in California, and you have the local shop, the off-road shop, speed shop, we're talking drifting, and you think our tools are a great fit, we have a dealer program, and we can get those people signed up. We can spend that back into the affiliate program again to kind of get you paid. I mean, sponsorship is such a vague word, and so many people think about sponsorship as sponsor me, give me a check, I'm going to put a 10-inch sticker on my car, and you're going to retire next week. It's like that. It just doesn't work that way. The sticker anymore for us, what the sticker does for us. But I mean, kind of think about drift, right? We're talking about drift right now. When you guys are sitting at the cones and you get ready to start, you're static. Okay. That's going to be the best chance unless we're the title sponsor on your car. So if we're just a small sponsor giving you some product or giving you a couple grand, we're going to have a 10-inch sticker. It's going to be on the back quarter panel. We're going to hope that the drone doesn't pass by. As soon as you hit the throttle and you create smoke, our sticker's gone. You are now going for your run for seconds, not minutes. And they're concentrating on your clipping points, your smoke, all that kind of stuff, which makes this sport so awesome and so exciting. But from a sponsorship standpoint, pretty hard. Then if you're one of the top 3 guys that get up onto the podium, right, and you're going to have your 30 seconds of airtime up there, unless, again, we're that title sponsor across your chest, if we're on your left sleeve somewhere towards the middle and the camera's straight onto you, we're not really going to get a whole lot of stuff. So the racing is great, and it all kind of comes together. But again, for us, it's more about the content, the behind the scenes. You're at the shop getting the car ready. You're at, the track getting ready. So it really depends on who your sponsor is on what's going to be the most valuable for them.
And I think that's perfect, because you're right, with drifting, you have like 23 seconds of an event and, maybe 15 to 20 seconds of on-time camera interview. There's not a lot of exposure time. So it's about what you're doing when you're not competing. It's about what you're doing in between the events and how you're helping a brand as an extension of their marketing or a brand ambassador. Robert, thank you very much, man. I appreciate you taking the time today. I know it's getting late, and
absolutely.
We're going to keep doing this until we get every driver funded.
There we go.
We'll do more.
Hit us up. So for us, it's sponsorship@boxusa.com. Go to the website, the affiliate program. There's a couple links on the website too. If you didn't get that website, just that email that you can kind of go straight from the website, and don't just say sponsor me. I mean, at least get a deck or something. Try and stand out.
Yeah. Standing out. That's what it's all about nowadays. Yeah. Cause there's so much competition.
Be a little different. Again, I mean,
global competition.
That it's there might be 100 people that same day that's doing the exact same thing that you're doing. So how can you stand out?
Especially if you're getting that many decks and proposals. Ooh, that's a lot. Cool. Thanks, Robert. Appreciate it, bud.
Thanks, Alex. Always appreciate you having me.
I'll see you at the races.
All right.
All right, let's queue up Andrew Cublin from Njuku Racing. There he is. Now, Andrew's a general manager, and this is slightly different because Njuku is not a manufacturer. Njuku is a sales outlet, a retailer. So sponsorships are a little bit different. Andrew, how's it going? Can you hear me? No, you might be muted. I don't know. He's muted. Hold on one sec. We'll try to unmute you. All right. George says we think you're unmuted now. How are you, bud? No? Do you know sign language? Hello? No. We're not hearing you yet.
Ask him to rejoin.
So George is saying maybe we'll have you rejoin. I'm not sure what the tech issue might be, but is Ed on? Maybe we'll swap Ed and Andrew real quick. We'll do Kenda Tires and come back to Andrew. Give him a minute to figure out the mic. Ed Kozan, are you on the line?
Oh, there you go. That sounds like you might have got
Oh, do we have Andrew now? I don't hear anything from my perspective, but
All right.
we'll queue up Ed real quick. Andrew, we're going to come back to you. We'll try to figure out what that is. Tammy, I don't know if you want to call him or get on. Ed, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, I can hear you as well.
Hey.
So thanks for joining a little bit out of order. I know it caught a few of us off guard, but Andrew, we're going to come right back to you. So you got a few minutes here. Ed, Kenda Tires, you
Yes,
are well, first off, you're a former law enforcement officer. So I want to say thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I want to just get that out there. Appreciate that.
Appreciate the kind words. It's been a minute, but you know, there's great after hour stories around it for sure.
So as the senior sales and marketing manager of Kenda Tires, tires are a very important part of drifting. We could probably go on for a couple hours, but we have about 13 minutes here to talk. Let's cover the basics as fast as we can. Why does Kenda Tires sponsor drifting? What do you look for from teams? What creates value for you?
Fantastic. Yeah, so for us, I came on board with Kenda in 2019. I've been working with various tire manufacturers since 2011. And in 2019, it kind of got our start where we were working in the grassroots environment with a couple of drifters based out of Texas. And when I came on board, I come from kind of a UHP background in the tire industry, working from Tire Rack back in the day. And I was kind of curious about, you know, I knew of drifting and about it, but I'm like, well, why are we sponsoring these drifters? And, you know, the long story short was it's a little bit of exposure, a little bit of kind of a word to on a much smaller marketing scale and budget of a way to basically tie into this grassroots audience. And as I came on board and kind of started to put some structure behind it and really a little bit of a plan and strategy on how do we tie our brand messaging in. So for Kenda, our mantra in motorsports is called Podium to Pavement, where we win with tires that are literally off the shelf, nothing that's a special R&D. Our involvement in Champ Off-Road, my counterpart there, we've actually pulled tires that have been raced on that following weekend from one of our wholesale distributors directly from their warehouse, taking them to the track up in Elk River or Bark River rather, and gone racing. So it's kind of the same thing for us. You know, I put structure into working in the grassroots audience just to kind of expose Kenda to a larger, wider audience with our social on Kenda Motorsports on Instagram. Started that in 2019, and it's just kind of grown exponentially from there. But really, the short answer is, for us in tires, we try to use that as a brand building exercise as well as an R&D. And that was kind of touched on by a couple other brands out there. But really, the short answer of it is you know, we take that as a learning exercise as well as a way to have boots on the ground. I mean, just like Robert was talking about with Boxo, there's Kenda is a very large, small tire company at the same time. So, I mean, there's a handful of us in the sales department, about 6 of us. There's basically 3 people in the marketing department, really 4 in the marketing department. So a lot of boots on the ground. So, you know, for us, it's a way to, in the drift audience, it's a way to prove our product at a grassroots level. And now with our involvement, I took us into Formula Drift beginning in 2023. And so kind of a top-down approach. We're very well known on the grassroots side. We're kind of exposing our brand to other people that are watching Formula Drift, but maybe not familiar with the brand at a direct level. And we're kind of trying to bridge that gap.
2023. So you're relatively new then to drift. That's interesting.
In Formula Drift, prior to my time,
Formula Drift. Okay.
Jim can tell you, we dabbled a little bit in FD back in 2014, 2015, working with like 1 or 2 drivers, but not at the scale that we're on. Last year for 2023, we came out with a new / improved tire, and we were going to use 2023 as a little bit of a learning year. I was transparent with all of our drivers, so we think we've got a pretty good product, but maybe not the product that we're after. And it's going to be a learning year. It's going to be an R&D year, a year to brand build, to kind of take notes for me from the marketing perspective. What is the audience of Formula Drift like? What is the fan engagement? What does a typical weekend look like? And this year, as we're kind of expanding the program, then working with adding additional drivers, we've improved our product from what we learned last year, and then also going to be working on a much larger fan engagement scale at track, doing some more B2B hosting of tire dealers and getting them out. Everybody kind of sees drift and Formula Drift, but they don't necessarily know much about it. So my thought was, we're going to bring some tire dealers out that are selling tires to the end users. We're going to educate them, and we're going to have some fun doing it. But yeah,
nice. So since you're going to make a bigger investment in Formula Drift, are you looking for more teams now?
Yeah. So, last year we started with, in Formula Drift, at the pro level, we started with 4 drivers. This year, I'm expanding my driver count up to 8. So it's a top 32 grid. So shooting for 25% of the field to be on Kenda tires this year.
And if I'm one of those drivers looking for sponsorship, how do I approach you, and how do I become considered by you?
That's the long story. So, we still maintain a placement in the grassroots community too, because that's kind of where we started. And so, kind of have this unofficial internal mantra of, they're good for bros, good for pros. So it kind of touches on both segments there, where people are not necessarily running to be competitive, but to enjoy the element of drifting. And then obviously as a higher level proving ground for Formula Drift. So we do work with a lot of grassroots drivers, several that I've onboarded this year. We've also worked with regional drift series. My thought there was working with some series partners. You have drifting series where people are signing up to and run a given weekend or run a given event. That might be 40 to 60 people or more in some cases, and obviously a lot more eyes on that. So I found that working with series partners, they're able to, exactly like what Robert talked about, we're a small company. We can't be boots on the ground everywhere. We do have our hot buttons with Champ Off-Road and Formula Drift, but at the same time, we're still trying to touch some of those smaller elements. So, one of the things that I do look for on a grassroots side is people that can kind of be some of those boots on the ground. There's events that we just overlap with our overall event schedule, our activations, our marketing schedule. Some of us just don't want to work on a weekend. There's a time and a place for that. So we're looking for people and brands that can do that. So, as we talked about before, social media is one element of that. And, I work with people that are, whether it's 2,000 followers, 20,000, 60,000, 180,000 on up. But, I'm trying to look for, ultimately the thing is when we kind of look at whether it's Formula Drift or whether it's a grassroots partner, looking at things like, ultimately, what can they bring to the table? What can they do for us that we can't do? Social media outreach is certainly a large part of that. We're also looking for, drivers who might be involved in media and who can bring additional media helping hands to the table and things like that.
Who can bring media. Now, is there any specific type of media, like length, duration, photos, videos, something on their social content, something you can post to your social content, or all of the above? Any certain deliverables that you're looking for that a driver on the call can use to get your attention and perhaps get sponsored?
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's one driver that's at a much small level at a pro-am regional kind of level that working with this year and onboarded, and he had kind of an interesting story and what we've strategized on is, the slidey stuff on track is great. Kind of a dime a dozen. I commented in the chat a little bit earlier that's kind of a low-hanging fruit of social media. But what this pro-am driver and I are looking for, he's got a really kind of unique backstory on what he was shooting to do is to elevate his game up into pro spec and up into pro eventually, like a lot of others, but kind of financially tapped out and got kind of dealt a rough hand with that. So I said, one of the interesting things in kind of hearing his story was, kind of a behind the scenes, kind of a blog type episode of stuff. content for that, kind of around what you're doing and kind of why you took a step back in your program, could be kind of a compelling story. So again, it's that unique pitch that, you know, not everybody's doing, but it also becomes saturated if everybody's doing it. So it's something that ideally we're going to try to work on to try to help that stand out and kind of still tell that grassroots story, while for us at Kenda, we're still competing on that higher Formula Drift Pro battlefield as well.
So speaking of financially tapped out, there are a lot of drivers on the call that are looking for financing. Some are looking for parts. Some are looking for just media partners. What does a sponsorship at Kenda Tires look like? Is it cash, product, combination, discounts, media?
All of the above. I mean, for us, let's say, you know, it's at the problem with a lot of sponsorship for tire companies is obviously tires, and especially in drift, it's the highest consumable. It's the highest cost center typically that's involved in any driver's program. The other problem for us with tires also is because that tire budget doesn't go that far. So in other words, I've kind of used this analogy too, that, you know, if I have a budget monetarily that equates, because there is a cost for me on tires, just like there's a cost for you. A lot of people think I'm getting free tires, but you know, I still have to pay for those from our plant and offset that against the overall marketing budget that I have to play with. So, and I would say the problem with tires though is for example, if I've whatever that dollar value works out to be, I have about 200 tires, 200 sets for the year that I could play with. You know, in Formula Drift, I mean, a season of FD or just even grassroots, I mean, could be 200 tires. That's dealing with one driver. On the other hand, tires don't really care what kind of a vehicle they're going on. So I've also told others before too, I'm like, you know, if it's about 200 tires, theoretically, I could outfit 50 different vehicles, whether cars, light trucks, SUVs, whatever that is. For us, for a tire company, that's fantastic content, because obviously we can reach to that. And that would include things like SEMA builds, PRIs, special placements, magazines, you know, social media and other social platforms that are doing, you know, video reviews and content and blogs, that sort of thing. So for me, you know, we have to kind of balance out the volume and the demand. So in other words, you know, I would like to be able to help more people, but honestly, you know, when you're drifting, 4 tires isn't much. It doesn't take you very far. Whereas 4 tires on a SEMA build, that could get me all around the show, you know, pretty nicely. So I have to kind of look at that. So for us, a lot of the other asks, tires is also a little bit of an uncommon game, because unlike getting seatbelts or getting a seat or getting a helmet or getting a radiator, things like that are just usually kind of annualized purchases, tires are obviously an ongoing consumable. So the other issues that we have with that is, you know, I can bolt in my own seat. I can't necessarily mount my own tires. And so when you think about tires going onto vehicles, you have to kind of balance that placement out a little bit. So typically people are looking for, obviously product is the big thing, you know, at a higher pro level, and even as some of the grassroots or pro-am sponsored drivers that we're working on. I mean, there is some monetary element that goes into that. But again, even at the FD pro level, I mean, not every driver that I'm working on or working with rather is getting that monetary value. I mean, that exists in Formula Drift, but a lot of drivers are just happy to, you know, have that tire backing as well. And there's obviously another back end value around that. So, you know, we kind of work with a mix of both, but again, for tire companies, it's difficult because you have to balance how many, you know, what's the overall cost and how far does that dollar value take you? And, you know, any one person, it's very difficult for any one person to have that social or just the overall media reach, the content reach that, you know, more than one is going to have, and especially in the case of, you know, having 20 or 40 people that you work with. But, you know, I think this year I'll be working with 8 drivers and probably around 5 to 6 in the grassroots level. Maybe a little bit higher like that. And again, 3 series partners that we're looking for. So I think it kind of provides a pretty consistent reach to a wide audience, but, you know, I'd like to help more people, but it's very difficult when those are the budget constraints.
Sounds like you're going to be quite busy this year. So kudos to that. Well, thank you for joining the call. I appreciate you taking the time. I realize you are busy and we covered a lot of ground on that session. That was some great info.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thanks, Alex.
Thanks. We're going to try Andrew again. Andrew Cublin. Let's see if his mic is working. Or if
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we got you. Right on. So how's Enjuku different from your traditional manufacturer? Your sponsorships are different.
Yeah, I mean, on the manufacturer's end, honestly, I would assume the margins are going to be larger, obviously, because they build the product or manufacture the product. And the end sale ultimately is going to kind of, the buck ends with them. whether you purchase a set of Kenda tires from a distributor, direct, whoever, they get the sale. So it's a little different for us because we're, one of 100 different dealers for brands like HKS or BC Racing or Tane Suspension, things like that. So that's probably where it's a bit different for us.
What do you look for then when you're selecting teams to represent in Juku?
I mean, if obviously they are using a platform that we, ourselves use or is in sort of our wheelhouse. We're known for in the drifting community and Nissan and Infiniti products, so that makes it easy. So that's a big thing. Obviously, if they're generating some good content, if the program looks good, and then we work with a fair amount of kind of smaller regional drift series, Drift Indy, US Drift, a handful of other ones. So we'll kind of touch base with the people running that series and say, hey, we got a proposal from this guy. How is he as a person? How is the program? Things like that, just to see if it may be a good fit.
What does a sponsorship look like? I'm assuming because it's going to be high volume because your margins are lower, so you're probably looking more for quantities as opposed to, or at least quantity sold as opposed to B2B, things like that. I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people kind of on the call have said, the sponsorship, it's kind of a vague term and it'll vary a bit depending on the situation. For us, I feel like we deal with a lot of grassroots and lower level guys. So most of the time, they're needing help on the product or the parts, spare parts, spare suspension arms and axles and things like that. So usually we'll start out kind of at a lower level. Somebody will reach out to us that seems to have a compelling proposal, and we'll have discounted parts for them and then grow it from there. And then they may progress in the sport and end up in a bigger pro-am series or pro spec, and then we'll kind of reevaluate it from season to season and kind of go from there.
So it starts small and it grows. And are you looking for more drivers now in drifting?
Yeah, I mean, we're always looking. It's just like everybody else has said, you have limited budget. For us, even the product can be difficult sometimes given, the margin. But yeah, I mean, we always will try to help out the grassroots guys because that's kind of where we've come from. I think we're probably one of the longest running privateer shops that has been in Formula Drift since almost its inception.
Nice.
But yeah, to like stroke a $10,000 check to a guy running a Pro-Am series in New Mexico that has, 300 drivers or 300 spectators may not be the case,
How many wives fab kits do you got to sell to pay for that sponsorship?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the thing is, sometimes people think the higher value item has higher margin. It's generally not the case. And if we provide one WiseFab kit to one team, we've got to sell 10 or 15 on the back end just to break even. So that's why a lot of times it'll be, we'll give a discounted rate to try to help out as much as we can. And then if the program grows, we'll kind of go from there.
What have been some good programs that you've been involved with where the drivers really have done a great job? And do you have long-term sponsorships right now? And if so, what kept them long-term?
Yeah, I mean, in FD, we've worked with a few drivers for quite a while, and we've grown a few, like Alec Honadale. He kind of came in years and years ago, and we built a car for him. And it was kind of a crazy setup, and we've been working together kind of on and off for, I don't know, 10 years. There's a local guy, Ryan Acevedo, who's kind of grown his program and grown over the years. And now he's in a Pro-Am series and sort of getting more support on our end as he's polishing the program and developing more media and content. So yeah, there's definitely a handful of guys that have done well to sort of come up through the grassroots, and they know that, there's deliverables that we need to make it make sense, some media, videos, pictures, focusing not only on their car, but the products that we sell, you know, the wheels on the car, the seats, the WiseFab, all those kind of parts.
Let's talk about that for a second, the type of media, but how much media, what kind of media, you know, obviously product media, and as it relates, you know, something that maybe you could use on the website to help sell a product, or just social media. What does the media look like? And if I'm a driver and I want to approach you for sponsorship and I have a really good media team, what kind of media should I be creating to get your attention?
Yeah, I mean, for us as a retailer, anything that can help sell the product is great. And I mean, the same would apply to a manufacturer, but um, you know, a picture of the car is great. And like someone said earlier, you know, a sticker on the car doesn't get you a whole lot, but if you had good photography or good videography of the install of, say, a suspension component or exhaust component or a seat, we can use that on our social media. We can use it on the website as install photos. So anything like that is great. But you know, thinking a picture of the car with a 4-inch sticker on it, it does the job is not quite the case, you know.
That's true. Do you work with other brands of products that you sell in your store?
Yeah,
You
I
do
mean,
any
so
cross
that,
sponsorships?
yeah, we do. I mean, there's some brands that we work pretty closely with, and then there's also some brands where we may be like a considered a pro dealer or a master distributor, and those will usually have a little bit more leeway to say have a marketing budget specifically for that brand, or have a little bit more margin to sort of discount the product more or help out more on that end. So as a retailer, that's something I guess if someone's approaching us, they could consider, like, if we are the master distributor of X brand, there may be more incentive for us to try to work with them and push that and market it more.
You had told me before that you want your brand ambassadors, your teams, your drivers to be good people. We've actually heard that a couple times today on this call.
Mhm.
Can you go deep on that and explain what you mean by that? Because you weren't the only one to have said it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to, you know, you're working with these people. They're an extension of your brand. They're not necessarily an employee, but you could say like a contractor. And no one wants to work with someone that they don't like, you know, and also to someone else's point earlier, you know, you don't want to have that meeting on Monday where the owner or the CFO goes, hey, so and so was at the track cursing somebody out or saying some inappropriate stuff. So yeah, I mean, it's you know, you want to work with good people, so we definitely do sort of our due diligence. If it's not someone we know directly, we'll get with a race series they run in and ask the, you know, guys running the series, how is this person on a personal level before we sort of get involved.
I forgot to ask you at the beginning, and I meant to, but how many Dexter proposals do you see on a weekly, monthly, or annual basis? Like, how often are people approaching you for sponsorship? And then what's your vetting process to filter through those?
I mean, it'll vary, but I would say on average, maybe 5 or 10 like a day kind of come in, but it's varying, like a DM that just says sponsor me with an emoji versus a full, you know, flushed out deck. Um, but yeah, I would say probably 5 or 10 a day, so quite a bit.
What's the best way to get your attention? Which ones do you actually consider? Like drivers on the call, what's the best way to approach you? Robert
Um,
said, don't DM him. Is what Robert just said.
Yeah, I mean the DM is definitely a difficult one because there's so many people, you know, we have 250,000 followers on Instagram, so you can imagine the DMs and tags are coming in all the time. So you may have a great one, but if you DM it, it could get lost, even though we try our best to check it all. So yeah, I would say send an email, and the biggest thing a lot of guys tend to forget is they'll say, "Hey, I want a sponsorship," but they don't let us know proactively what actually they're looking for as far as support. You know, do they need a $10,000 check to run the series or do this upgrade? Do they want to start out with discounted parts and try to grow the relationship? You know, what do they need? And then sort of what do they have that they can provide in return? Do they have a great marketing team or a photographer, or do they have a great social media outreach? You know, so knowing that stuff is definitely good. Not so much the analytics from Formula Drift's deck, because we know that, we know how many people watch FD, but how many people, watch you, and what content have you produced and what results has that got?
That's a good point. When we were talking, you actually said you don't need to see Formula Drift's demographics because you're in the market, you know it. So that's something that really is not necessary in a deck. What are some better things to put in a deck?
Yeah, I mean, I always like to see, the content that they've generated in the past and sort of how it's been received. So as a team or a driver, sort of keeping tabs on the things that you're posting and how they're performing. So you can say, hey, we generated these videos, we generated these photos, this is the response we got. And these are the past people we've worked with and the initiatives we've done, and this is how it's gone, is great. And if you're starting out, you may not have it, but try your best to sort of document that. So at least we know you have that thought. It's not just you're going to the track on Sunday to race. Like you've got other objectives that you've got to meet to kind of fund that and keep it going.
Sounds like you want it to be more than just you send them cash or product or a discount and they put some stickers on and go to the track and maybe pass out a sticker or two. It sounds like you're looking more for a relationship that's longer term, that leads to opening up business. Do you offer coupons or have an affiliate program, or do you have QR codes that can track and measure the success of those sales that your drivers are generating?
We did have an affiliate program, but I believe we had to sort of dial it back because we upgraded to a different website software. But for some of the bigger name sponsored drivers, we would have like a specific discount code. So if they're at the track, they'll have like a flyer with that on it, or if they have somebody asking, and we'll track that and see like, oh, driver X, 50 people used that coupon this month, and driver Y, 200 did. And that'll definitely weigh into, what budget may be allocated to that in the following year.
That's and I think that's a common thing that we hear a lot now. So as we have, I think, about a minute left, I'm being told, in this session, I appreciate it. This has been a really good one. What are some last words of advice that you have for drivers on the call looking for sponsorship?
I would say just, you've got to remember that it's not simply like a charity donation. Like personally at Injuku, we like to support the grassroots guys, and we want to see them come up in the sport and in the series that they're in. But it's a two-way street, so creating that content, delivering it, not just once a year, and when you're asking for the next round of sponsorships is huge. So yeah, just really looking at it as a two-way street and saying, hey, I'm going to get this discount, or I'm going to get this part, but in return, here's a handful of pictures or videos from the event, and, just keeping up instead of just that once a year ask of, hey, I need some money or I need some parts. This is huge.
Yeah, that is true. I appreciate that. Andrew, thank you. Thank you for taking the time. You're on the East Coast, right?
Yeah, out in Orlando. Yeah.
Well, thank you for staying up late. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. No worries at all.
All right. Take care. We'll see you at the races.
All right. Thanks.
All right, George, let's pull up our final speed dating session. This is Mark Beatty from Red Line Oil. Mark, how's it going?
Doing really well. How are you all this evening?
It's been a long day, but it's going, and we got one more session left. I've learned a lot. Stimulus overloads. There's a lot of great information that came out, and some stuff I learn every time I do one of these summits. And I think it's fantastic. I hope I'm able to pull out enough useful information for drifters on the call. It's my first drift summit. You live, you learn. And have you been attending the whole time?
Yeah, I've been listening for a long time, and it's really fun to hear, and it's amazing what we all learn, right? Because I kind of learn things too as you listen to other folks and see what they have going on. So you're never too old to learn, or you're never too smart to hear and see different and how things are done. So it's a great show. It's a tough show, like you said. At Redline, we're one of the brands that we're involved from everything from bass fishing. That's tough to say this late at night, to snowmobile racing, to a lot of power sport stuff, supercross, arena cross, and then in the motorsport side of things, everything from the NHRA to a lot of stock car, NASCAR type of stuff, and a lot of drift stuff. So for us, I get what you're saying, because it is pretty tough when you try and take all that you do and fine tune it down into one segment, right? And so in one segment like the drift segment, I get it. It's a challenge, but I think overall, what you're trying to share with people, what you're trying to teach people, it applies no matter what, right? Because you might be drift racing now, but who knows what you're doing next and stuff. So I think it applies to everything.
Has Redline been in drifting long? I'm
Yeah.
relatively new to drifting, and I think most of the attendees here realize that. My members know that.
Yeah.
I come from a off-road background and general motorsports with Lucas out of Circle Track and NHRA. I've been to a couple of drift events. I was at Formula Drift last year, but I'm not an expert by any means on drifting. I'm looking to draw out those experts. How long has Redline been involved in drifting?
We've been associated one way or another with drift teams and drivers for probably 5 years now. So,
Okay.
as a brand, we're relatively new as well, but it's kind of, in some of the stuff, we're like one step removed, right? So because as a brand, we really focus on getting our products in retail locations and shops and that type of stuff. And so our customers, we have a lot of customers that have been in the drift space for a long time, that have used our products and sold our products and stuff. But we've always kind of been one step removed from that. So yeah, I guess directly we're a little new in that space, and I'm like you, I've been the brand director there now for a little over about 3 years, I should say. And I have a huge motorsports background, lots of different things, but a little new to drifting
Are you
and
looking for
stuff.
more drifters to sponsor?
We're always looking for the right people, and the drift crowd is, I really, really enjoy them. I've gone to a few of the events. We've got, a guy by the name of Kevin and his wife Gabby that have a company called Renspec, and they're probably our pilot on drift events and drift racing and stuff. And he's like pro-am, and I've gone to some events with him, and he's even taken me for a ride in their car, and oh my gosh, I mean, talk about getting hooked instantly. If you haven't gone for a ride, and when they get out on the track, and obviously it was just a practice session, but there's three of them side by side doing their deal. Alex, I'm telling you, go for a ride. And then all of a sudden it's just like the respect level and the enthusiasm for drifting amplifies significantly. It's an art.
I find that in all motorsports. Yeah, in
Yeah.
all motorsports it's that way. You put someone into a Pro 2 truck ride and drive or ride
Yeah.
along, you put someone in an Indy car, you put them in
Yeah.
a drift car. I mean, yeah, it's pretty exciting. It really is. So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, if you are looking for more teams, what is it that you're looking for? What could the drivers on the call do to learn from this session on how best to approach any brand, and then also more specifically Redline?
Well, let me speak from my standpoint. My standpoint, I learned really early in my business career and in my racing career a saying that I use to this very day, and that's the fact that I do business with those that do business with me and stuff. So, as everybody's talked on this call, we all get hundreds or thousands of opportunities sent our way every single year, and the first test for me is I find the people that are actually using our product. Because if there's a person that's gone out there and they've made the investment to buy Redline oil, they've been using Redline oil, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, so you've been doing business with me, so now it's my turn to look at trying to do some business with you. How can I help you? How can I do things and stuff like that? Because the biggest thing that bothers me when I get a lot of those proposals, and I try and pay attention to every single one that I get, but you find that team or you find that driver where if you look back in their history. It's in my case, it's like 1 year I see a Motul decal on their car, and then the next year I see a liquid moly decal on the car, and then all of a sudden they're asking me for help, and it's just like, in some situations in life, next man up is a good thing. But if you're looking for sponsorship, especially from an oil company, I'm sorry, I have no interest in being the next man up,
Yeah.
and stuff. What a lot of racers don't understand is that it cheapens them as a brand, and it cheapens me as a brand if I jump in on that. I don't want to be the next man up. What I want to be is something that's significant and part of a race team or a racer that's been involved with us for years. So first and foremost, I just and I tell folks, my background is I come at this from the other side. I mean, I was involved in racing my entire life, and so I've sent out proposals. I've had to do that to try and get manufacturers to help me and stuff. So I understand what they're doing, because I had to do it way longer than what I've been on this side of the fence. But I also did it in the way that I believed. It's like, we had businesses that we had relationships with people that manufactured X, Y, or Z. And those are the people that I went and talked to, because we're already doing business with them. Right. Because flying blind is pretty tough. So that's
Yeah.
my number one. I look for folks that have invested in us and use Redline Oil, and I quiz them about it and find out that they really are. And then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you got my attention. Let's talk.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I think that probably speaks for all brands on the call. Is Joe at Slime always says that. Slime's part of the ITW group. Know our brands first before you call us. Let's say someone does use Redline Oil and they've been using it for quite a while, and they do business with you, and now they want you to do business with them. What does that look like? What does a sponsorship from Redline Oil look like?
Well, we have multiple levels. I mean, we usually start the majority of folks off on a product discount side of things, and we have a couple of steps in a product discount side of things. And so we'll start with one of those, and it gives us the opportunity to test waters together, and figure out what are they like, and how are they. You can read a lot of things in proposals, and you can see a lot of things on social media, but it's different when you're having that one-on-one relationship with people. So I like to start slow and see what that relationship is, and build it from there. And then ultimately, we end up with a handful of teams that will end up with a no charge, program from us and stuff. But you're gonna work for that, because like Andrew, a couple of the other guys were saying, no charge isn't free to me. There's a hard cost associated
Yeah.
with that to me and stuff. So I'm no different than anybody else. I have to justify that up the ladder, up the corporate ladder. I have lots and lots and lots of corporate bosses. So, you have to make sure that you're doing the right thing and stuff. And so, from our standpoint at Redline Oil, we don't necessarily offer any monetary sponsorships. It's just simply one of the things that we don't do. It's not in our wheelhouse and stuff. So, that kind of, there are those folks like other people have talked, and that I get it. Race cars, they run on cubic dollars. I get it. All forms of racing does, including drift. And so you have those racers out there that's really the only thing they need is money. And it's just one of the things that we just elect not to do it that way. We would rather spend our money promoting the series, or spending it with the series where all racers benefit, than with an individual racer.
Well, I personally think that an endemic brand, one like Redline Oil, that's endemic to the industry, or even tire companies, and any aftermarket parts company, they're saving a driver money by sponsoring that person, and a penny saved is a penny earned. So the endemic brands can purchase sponsorships through product and nice discounts to get started. But the non-endemics, let's say M&M or a beverage company, they're not going to make you drive faster, and you don't need more energy drinks in order to win a race. So they have to pay. Drivers should look for the money from the non-endemics, the Doritos, the Monsters, the Slim Jims, and the clothing companies, perhaps. Maybe not the race suit companies like Sparco, but the the Vans and Levi, but the money comes from the non-endemics. The parts come from the endemics. So that being said, if I'm looking for some sponsorship from Redline Oil, what's the process? What's your decision-making process? Is there a fiscal year? Is there a time frame? Who do I approach? How do I do it? I want to show you that I'm eligible, and I think I'm going to do a great job representing the brand, and all I need is some oil because you'll save me money. What do I do next?
Well, what I do is on our website, redlineoil.com, at the very bottom of the website, there's a button down there for sponsorships. And so I open up the sponsorship September 1st of every year, and it's open till October 31st. So I close it basically on Halloween. So to get things started, go to our website when it's open, and we've got a form, and fill out a form. And so that puts you then on my radar screen. And I make everybody do that. I make everybody do it every single year. It's like, if you're in one year, it doesn't carry over to the next, because to me, it's like I try and be equitable and ethical. And so it's like, no, I'm going to make everybody do the exact same thing. And so, and if they're not willing to go to our website and do that, to me, then maybe the sponsorship's really not that important to them, right? So go invest 15 minutes, apply online. Once you apply online, you're required to give me all your social media links, and that's where I spend, oh my gosh, that's how I spend my entire November and December, is every single night sitting in front of my computer and just looking through each and every one of them. This year we have about 500 race teams that are on Team Redline Oil.
Wow.
So we help a lot of folks and stuff, everything from the grassroots all the way up to the biggest names, in some of the sports and stuff. And even the big guys, they have to go on and reapply every single year and stuff. So that's the first thing to do. And then, obviously it's a matter of I'll look through everybody's social media. I look at the pictures that you send me, and I look at things like that. If I have any questions on things, you'll definitely hear from me. I'll send you an email. I'll make a phone call. It's, to me, it's one of those ones where, especially when I look at social media, I don't necessarily care how many followers a person has, but I care about the content, because, another one of my favorite sayings is real knows real. Okay.
Yeah.
You can
Real.
tell by looking at social media a real racer that is really focused on their racing, right? I mean, we see it all the time. You can see the person that races and just kind of does whatever, and you look at their social media, and it kind of wanders all over the place. And then you look at a real racer's social media page, and there's a difference, and real knows real. And that's, for us as a brand, that's where I'm looking. I'm looking for the real racer. Because we're investing, even if it's a product discount, once again, it still costs me money. We're investing in you, and we need to know that we can count on you, because if the guy or gal next to you is having a problem, you can walk into the back door of their trailer. I can't. You can walk into the back door of the trailer, and you could say, I don't have that problem, because, it might be because I'm using Redline Oil, or here's the rear end grease I'm using, or here's a tranny fluid I'm using, or whatever. You ought to give that a try, and maybe your problem will go away. They can have the conversations that we can't have, because real knows real. A real racer knows that. A real racer is telling them that.
And I think it's important for those trannies to use the rear end grease, honestly.
So it's just, yeah.
We used to joke about this. Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Listen, last words of advice. We got 1 minute. And then I appreciate everything. All the panelists on the call today. I think we've done an outstanding job. I'm going to talk about my membership for 1 second at the very end, but last words of advice.
Work hard. Don't give up. If you come at any of us the first time, maybe it doesn't work the first time, but listen to what Alex is teaching you, listen to what the other people are telling you. And if you have to tweak your approach, if you have to tweak anything that you have going on, just don't give up. If it's your dream, if it's your passion, if it's real, then do it. It'll work out.
Thank you, Mark. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everybody on the call. This was awesome. This is our very first Drift Summit. I learned a lot from it, so I hope to make the next one even better and more valuable. I'm going to send a survey out to ask everybody what you liked, what you didn't like, what we should do different next time. Apparently, a few people had login problems. I got to figure that out. I don't know what happened there, but I apologize for that, and we will fix that. My son Cole wants me to mention the podcast. So I have a membership program. I have a monthly membership program where I do sponsorship coaching. It comes with Zoom calls, one-on-one Zoom calls. Well, I'll speak with you about your sponsorship desires and issues, and sometimes I can make referrals. It has sponsorship coaching. All the summits come with membership. You can attend any summit or watch any of the recordings. And then the summits are repurposed into podcasts. And then I'm also now doing podcasts. The first one is in a week with Julian Gill, CEO of iBox Springs, where my members can be on the podcast and ask questions afterwards. Membership is $47 a month. It's not a lot, that much. It's not enough to keep me alive or make a living, but I'm learning how to create a program that I think applies to how drivers can represent companies and brands. And through my membership program, I've started an affiliate program. I think I have 42 affiliates. I think 7 of them had promo code redemptions last time at the last summit. I don't know on this one. I'll have to look at the data afterwards. But the affiliate program is another way that drivers can make money, or any athlete can make money, that supports the racing. If you're not making a lot of money on purses, if you're not getting a lot of money from sponsors, affiliate programs are one way to earn an extra income if you're heavily involved with that entity, or in my case, a membership that has affiliates. Like Robert at Boxo, he has an affiliate program. That's a great one if you think you can sell tools. So I think I covered everything. Go to meetthesponsors.com for more information. Meetthesponsors.com is where the podcast starts. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple, whatever it's called, podcast. It's on all the different podcast feeds. I'm not very technical, so I don't know how to do that, but my son Cole has set that up. And Nicole, let me know in the surveys and send me any thoughts, concerns, questions, ideas, input to make this better next time. But thank you everybody for joining. I know it was long. We tried to go fast. Hopefully you got something out of it.